Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the UKL Four Nations Autumn broadcast. We've got week 4, day number 2 for you right here, and we've got a ton of really exciting matchups. Unfortunately, we haven't had enough people ready to be able to bring you a pre-show and a desk, so it is just going to be me, Bloxer, and Dry Salad joining me for the broadcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, and hey, this is the beauty of esports broadcast, is that it doesn't matter if not everything is exactly the way you expect it to be every single week. We come together, we have a great time, and being back here with you, Bloxer, as always, hopefully it's gonna be a lovely, lovely experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be massively fun. We're only here for the first 2 games. We will have a full desk set up and casters and everything for the next 2 games. So, if you're a little bit bored of our faces, don't worry. It will get even more exciting later on. But for right now, we have some really incredible matchups to bring you. Some real top of the table ones. We're looking at Group B right now, which has been an absolute bloodbath. We've got Verdant playing later on up against Paragon, but for right now, it is going to be Broad and Friends versus Good Chi. You can see here with the standings, I mean, Verdant have been crushing people, haven't they? 4-1, just haven't been dropping games, and they've looked so clean.
Absolutely, yeah. 4-1 here so far over the first 3 weeks, an extra day on top of that. I think one of the main things that we're looking forward to today as we get into that second game, obviously the first game, don't want to belittle it, don't want to say that it's not as exciting, but I think going into that second game, what's going to be very interesting is to see Paragon, who I think maybe have slightly underperformed from just sort of my expectations going into the season,
Yeah.
how they maybe won't look to bounce back. If they win this game, they're then level pegging with Verdant, and going forward, that gives them so much more room to play throughout the season.
Absolutely, but of course, with the way that the tournament is working at the moment, if you're not that 5th team in the groups, you still got a chance. You do still manage to go on to that mixed group stage. Top 2 move on, bottom 2, you still get to play. So there is an incredible amount resting on both of these matchups. Like I said, the top of the table is really important for getting yourself seeding coming out of this initial group stage, but Broad and Friends and Good Chi are not out of it yet. They are our bottom couple of teams in this tournament right now, but that doesn't mean that they're completely done for. They've won 2 games. 2-4, it's not a great spot to be in, but you're still really fighting up against each other. And this is an incredibly important matchup for these guys, because if they do end as the bottom 2 teams, then having the head-to-head is going to be really, really important. Broad and Friends won the last matchup. They managed to beat out against Good Chi. And so if Good Chi lose this one again, that puts them in a really tough spot for trying to get out of this group going forward.
Absolutely, and even just looking at the fact that they are the bottom 2 teams, there's that sort of, old saying of there can only be one person that is actually last place. So one of us is going to have to lose this game. One of us is going to have to win this game. One of these teams will come out swinging and find their way up in the table. And as you mentioned, of course, just trying to stay away from that 5th place position to make sure that they can move on. In these individual matchups, I think one of the things that tends to happen so often is that we get bogged down in like placement, position, whatever. These 2 teams have to know going into this that they are on a similar pegging in terms of just performance so far, this split, right? And so for them, it's all about, if I can prove that I'm better than this team, right? Cement myself in that position above them. I can take a game or 2 off one of the teams maybe placing higher than me right now, find your way into those positions where you can move on in the tournament, and then, who knows what can happen from there.
Yeah, exactly. These teams are not out of it, and there is still a little bit of time left to turn things around. A little bit, though. We've not really got any more weeks left. You do need to make it work pretty much right now. But winning this matchup would be huge for either of these teams. I think it's the most interesting scenario for us as viewers for Good Chi to win this one out. Then they have the 1-1 head-to-head. They're then in a really interesting spot when it comes to actually getting through the groups. So that could be very interesting if you're a neutral observer. Obviously, if you're a fan of one of these teams, you're absolutely hoping that they win this one, because elevating yourself to that 3 and 4 spot should be good enough to get you out of this group. Crazy things have happened, I guess, technically, but yeah, it should be enough to get you out. And both of these teams, I had decent expectations for, right? I wasn't expecting either of them to really take the league by storm, but Good Chi looked really impressive over the summer with our For Fun tournament that we held, went further than perhaps we were expecting, absolutely leveled some kids, and it was a really good time when we got to see that happen. And then on the other side of it, right, Broad and Friends, they're always good, and they have some really big names, right? Porp in the Jungle specifically, that is a huge name, has been around the UK university scene, then just the UK scene, perennial Insomnia winner, So just huge names on this squad, and so it has been a little bit surprising to see both of them struggle quite as badly as they have done.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that we get a lot, especially just with the UK scene being how sort of, not to say small, but closed and sort of cooperative as it is. Everyone within the UK scene, we've sort of seen each other grow. We've seen each other play over these last few years. You mentioned coming up from the university scene into the UK scene. Having then that sort of blip in play, whether it's due to patch, whether it's due to maybe just, hitting a rough patch in the way that you're playing in your career, I think it'll be interesting to see how they get over that, whether it's a mental thing, whether it's a physical thing, whatever that may be. And on top of that, on a patch right now where I think the game has sort of shifted to almost more normal professional 5v5 League of Legends, if you get what I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
you're seeing a lot more enchanters in the bot lane. You're seeing a lot more teams play around that sort of juggernaut style top laner, mage, mid, a jungler who can engage, who can play team fights. I mean, Jarvan back in the meta, Vi back in the meta, Sejuani back in the meta. These sort of team fight centered comps so much more favored now. It just means that 5v5 play is going to be absolutely paramount in these games.
It really is, and I think that's something that these teams have both struggled a little bit with, right? Individual talent is there. It doesn't feel like either of these teams are just getting rolled because they're not good enough, but perhaps it is the ability to play around each other in these big team fights, really make that work for you that hasn't been working as well for these teams. And this is a really good place to be able to try to get your feet under you a little bit, It's not like either of these teams haven't been able to win games either. They have been. It's not quite the same as we've been seeing in Group A. I think Group A has probably had a little bit more of a split between the top teams and the bottom teams. I mean, what we were watching last week on Monday, even God, the time flies, where it was just it felt like there was basically nothing that could be done for Venom Crest, right? Ruddy were really strong. Yeah, thank you very much, production, for showing this. Group A, Ruddy up against Venom Crest. It felt like there was literally nothing Venom Crest could do, and they played a really good initial 15 minutes. Like the first 15 minutes of that game were really good, really back and forth, and then there was nothing you could do. Ruddy were just better. This group B, has felt a lot closer, a lot more back and forth, with teams being able to take matchups off of each other. I think that's exceptionally interesting for us to be able to watch, and it's something to sort of keep in mind as we go forwards, that you're not necessarily watching two teams that aren't going to be able to compete with some of the best. They just need to get things working a little bit better than it has done so far.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, I mean, just so far sort of is the key word for
Yeah.
me here, right? I mean, we've had 3 weeks of play completed, which means, yes, we've seen sort of what these teams had to offer, but at the same time, I'm sure a lot of them are thinking to themselves, we can be better than this. There's so much that we haven't really shown, or maybe some of these games which were closer, or some of these games where it felt like they were losing not necessarily due to just being outplayed, they were just making silly mistakes, or maybe their draft didn't go specifically the way that it goes. And that to me is sort of what it comes down to today, is that you've had all this time now. These teams know each other well. These teams have seen each other play. We've seen them play. I want to see some teams maybe break out of that style.
Yeah.
Right? And you see this a lot in the top divisions of play, is that the teams that tend to push themselves to the top, you've got two options. Either you're a team that's perfected one style of play, you're incredible at one thing, nobody can do anything to you, or you're somebody that kind of always breaks the mold. I mean, we talk about the G2s of the world, right? Making it to World Finals basically by just confusing teams and finding ways to make them unaware of what was happening. If you're one of these teams that's lower off in the groups, I think you need to find ways to change the game, right? Change the game in your favor so that you're not just playing this bog standard 5v5, we know exactly where we're going, we know exactly how the game's going to play, because then you're just going to get skill diff sometimes, and you need to find a way to sort of work around that.
Absolutely. So we are going to jump on into the draft right here. Broad and Friends up against Good Chi. Despite the fact that Broad and Friends did win that 1v1 matchup last time they played up against Good Chi have beaten much better opponents. They've gotten a game off of Paragon, they got a game off of Verdant as well, which was incredibly impressive. So overall, I think I'm leaning towards Good Chi for the win here today, but we really will have to wait and see. Neither of these teams have really stepped out of the mold too much, I don't think, in terms of pure draft, right? There's been a lot of standard enough picks. There's been a few weird things. I mean, Trizzy pulled out a Teemo game, so that's something that we got to watch, right? But overall, yeah, it's really not been too out of left field right now. We do have to mention that Broad and Friends, they did lose themselves a ban, unfortunately. That shouldn't impact them too much. I don't think there's necessarily going to be a massive amount you need to remove, but yeah, unfortunately, losing a ban could have an impact if there's something that you were very specifically needing to get rid of. I think losing a ban on blue side isn't as bad, right? Losing it on red side means you really can be punished very hard. This isn't as bad.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that when you have that first pick anyway, you kind of don't feel as impacted by that. Maybe you want to get rid of a few counter picks for whatever that B1 is going to be, but won't affect them too much. As well as that, you were just mentioning these two teams. Obviously, we saw them at Summer as well. Is that Orianna gets insta-logged? No thought going into that one. They had that
Don't need to. Don't need to.
planned. I mean, it's a standard mid lane pick. There aren't that many champions which can sort of force it out of the game, so you understand taking it first. Does mean that there is the potential for a very, very, very strong R1, R2 for the bot lane here. I think something like a Jinx paired alongside an Enchanter, even paired alongside something like a Thresh, can outrange the Orianna, can become a huge problem. But I thought we were out of this. I thought we'd left this Orianna Syndrome mid lane.
This could be ADC. We've been seeing quite a lot of Syndra ADC recently, and to be honest, it's been looking really, really good, especially with some high AD threats available in the jungle, potentially, with the Nocturne being hovered, also in the mid lane, Yasuo, Yone's. They are so strong. You need your AP from somewhere. AP junglers aren't exactly as insanely powerful as they were just a couple of months ago, so Syndra in the ADC role can be pretty good. Of course, we may also just end up with it in the mid lane and having a matchup that really is not particularly individually exciting in and of itself, but these champions can bring wombo combos to the actual team fight, so they have some excitement, I guess.
Definitely. I think on top of that, I do like the Nocturne as a pairing with the Syndra, but also I love it to negate that threat of the Orianna Nocturne combo coming in. If you get that, the Nocturne Paranoia, the Orianna Shockwave coming down onto your carries late game, it can be really devastating. So just negating the ability for that to come into play is very good. Skarner, a nice pairing as well, just because you get large Impale, you get 2-3 enemies, the Orianna ball comes down on top of them, can become very, very devastating. But you at least now have that extra shield of the Syndra with the Scatter the Weak. Rell being hovered here, so we have a very, very, very sort of obvious team fight style we're going for. We want to snap on you, we want to get that huge AoE CC down, and we want to make sure you can't play the game. But that being said, with champions like Syndra, who can play from such high range, who can counter the Skarner engage, the Rell engage, keep that range from the Orianna, it might be a little bit difficult for them to find those points to snap onto.
Yeah, potentially. It's not exactly the easiest composition right now to jump on top of, but of course we don't necessarily know what the ADC is going to be, and that could be something that's very squishy, very easy to just try to straight up teamfight into. The Alistar being picked up here is interesting. It's pretty good into the Rell. You just end up in a bit of a situation where every time the Rell wants to jump in, you could just say no and get rid of it, and the Alistar has been looking nice as well. It is wild the fact that the same supports have been in the meta for so long. It feels like engaged supports have just been the standard for the last, 8-9 months? The whole season, pretty much. We never really got an Enchanter meta, we never really got a straight-up healers or anything. It's just been engaged support after engaged support, but this Alistar, it works well enough. I don't feel like Gucci have a real identity in this composition yet. You look at Broad Friends and you're like, right, teamfight. There's basically nothing else you want to do. If you can hit the holy grail of wombo combos with Broad Friends composition, it just wins. Whereas Gucci right now, they've got some individually okay parts, but it's really going to be up to these final two pickups to really pull it together into a coherent composition.
It absolutely will, and I think on top of that as well, Gucci, you mentioned they don't really have much sort of style, much shape to their comp, I think, as well. I think they seem to have picked 3 answers to Broad Friends, rather than 3 picks they really wanted to land. Seems like they picked the Syndra because they have Orianna. We picked the Nocturne to stop that from happening, and Syndra needs it. We picked the Alistar to get rid of the Rell, to get rid of the Skarner. And it works in those individual cases, but then you start to think, well, what is your actual team identity? What shape do you have, right? Right now, they need some more sort of guaranteed damage to get through that Skarner, to get through that Rell. You don't want your Syndra to be pumping too much of her damage onto that Rell, ending up with no ultimate, ending up with no Scatter Weak for things like the Orianna to pick them off. Ashe coming in now. There's a lot of CC in this game.
There is. That's a very immobile ADC in a very, very aggressive composition game. To be fair, if you can pair it effectively with the Nocturne, if you can snipe somebody with the Nocturne and then, paranoia your way in, that's a great long-range engaged tool. But Nocturne does not help to buy an Ashe space. You're really relying on the Alistar and Syndra to do that. It's a decent pairing to be able to. Gragas fits the bill really well right here. Can slot into the jungle just fine. I mean, if you want to move the Skarner into the jungle, that works too. It's pretty good as a flex right now. But even beyond that, it just really works with the wombo combo. If you can push somebody back towards you and then use the Impale off of the Skarner, that makes it very easy to get people super out of position. And say if they're a super immobile carry, like a Syndra or an Ashe, it's going to be very, very tricky to buy yourself enough space. Like, you are super reliant on somebody being able to buy you just massive space ahead of you. Alistar can try, but there's only so much he can do there. Jinx, I think honestly most ADCs would have slotted into this composition quite well. And although it's not the style we've been seeing a lot of recently, we've been seeing a lot more aggressive ADCs, I think the Jinx is going to work pretty well right here. The Realm pairing works very well. The Ashe will bully the Jinx out a little bit early on, but later you completely overrun the game.
Absolutely. I think, you saw the MF hovered for a bit. I was sort of expecting the MF to come out just because on top of all the CC they already have,
Extra
you get the bullet time on top of that. Just, magnificent. But then you're a bit one-dimensional. You don't have much to sort of play around. Sion now coming down. One thing I will say, I worry about where Chi's damage is coming from and how it's going to land onto some of these champions, right? You think about the Jinx here, you have the Paranoia, but if that Nocturne flies in there, lands on top of the Jinx, then what? You've got Rel, Skarner, Gragas, Orianna, all fully loaded up and ready to deal with the rest of your team. Syndra can play from range, but I'm not sure how easy it is for her to get onto the Jinx. The Alistar feels more like a counter pick. The Ashe feels like it's there again to sort of keep the enemy team at safe distance. And the Sion is not really sliding his way through all these champions and wiggling his way onto this Jinx. So I just worry for how they're going to deal with these two carriers of the Orianna and the Jinx, when the Gragas, the Rel, the Skarner can create so much space, but also engage so efficiently. I think that's the main difference here. Is Broad and Friends sort of have good disengage and engage, whereas Good Chi have very good disengage, but I'm not sure if their engage really works that well together unless they can find those individual picks. Ashe ult, Nocturne ult on an isolated target. But if they have those friends around them, it could get dangerous.
I think you're absolutely right with that one. It's such a different philosophy in draft. Like you were saying, a lot of the counter picks. The Sion, I like. I think the Sion was sort of a necessary part of this composition. You need something big, beefy, that can stand up to a Jinx for a while, and at least buy some more space. Ornn would have also filled that role decently well, but the Sion, I think, is going to have a little bit of an easier matchup into top lane too. I'm worried about this Nocturne, right? I really need to see this Nocturne hit that first ulti, get an initial kill, and then we'll see where to go from there. Because if you don't do that, you have decent scaling, but it's not like Broad and Friends don't, and the team fight just feels like it should be much easier to execute for Broad and Friends. Good Chi, you've got people to step up to initially face check onto the objective, but you kind of want to be getting the Nocturne into the backline, and nobody's coming with you. This is not a composition where everybody goes on in. We saw a composition with a Nocturne the other day where there was a Xin Zhao top lane and a Kai'Sa bot lane. And it was great. It was excellent, because everybody just went in. You all just went flying in together. Who cares, that there's a Hui or something? They can sit back. The rest of us, we're dive buddies, we're getting into the backline. Wonderful. It does not work like that here. If you go diving in as the Nocturne and the only person who can come with you is the Alistar, then you've left a massive vulnerable hole in the backline where the Syndra and Ashe are just going to be vaporized. It's so difficult to play. I think the only issue you could be running into as Broad and Friends is this is a pretty short-ranged composition overall. You've got to step quite far up to be able to land that big wombo combo, and that does potentially leave you vulnerable to Alistar and Sion.
Yeah, I mean, it's about finding that sort of moment to snap, right? Because as you said, they can sort of get poked out. My main worry is just that the Syndra has too many targets she needs to hit, almost, right? If you're cancelling the Rel engage, you still got Gragas and Skarner and Orianna looking up. If the Gragas sort of steps up and then the Syndra blows the Scatter of the Weak, suddenly you've got these 4 champions beaming at you, realizing this is our window to snap. What I will say is she does have the Alistar to sort of take a little bit of that load off of her shoulders, at least. But if I had to go just draft, because I know we do these little predictions, but just draft alone, I do prefer the blue side draft a lot. I'd rather play the blue side draft in those games. But I do think that Good Chi maybe have a slight advantage in terms of just their players. And I think if the Nocturne can find ways to, as soon as he hits level 6, get a couple of kills on the board, if they can fight those early grubs, early drakes, and just establish enough of the lead that they can play the range advantage and not let the enemy get near them, that is how they win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a really fascinating game. Super interesting drafts. We're going to head to a short break. When we're back, though, we're going to bring you Broad and Friends versus Good Chi in the first matchup of the day. Alrighty, here we go. Matchup between Brod and Friends and Gucci right here. Both of these teams fighting for their lives right now in the Four Nations tournament here. They're really going to need to pick up a win, both of them. Not been a good split so far, but we've got some really interesting compositions right here. Both of us kind of preferred what Brod and Friends had laid down, so we'll have to see if they're going to be able to pick up this win. What are you thinking as we get into this game?
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how these two junglers decide to path, just in terms of what we mentioned in the draft. We think this Nocturne has to be sort of proactive in this game. Make sure he gets not necessarily a huge lead, but just some sort of pressure around these early game objectives. Obviously, fighting three-man Syndra, Nocturne, Sion can be kind of good, but it's so reliant on so many different things hitting, and I just worry for what happens if they fall behind with these champions, and then Nocturne becomes a bit of a ward.
Yeah, I mean, it is useful being able to turn off the lights in any given location. That does help, but if that's your primary function, then you're not in the best spot, right? You would much rather that you actually manage to impact the game through your damage, through your skill expression, rather than just being a human version of a light switch. Right now, it looks like both of the junglers are going to be starting towards the top side of the map, interestingly enough, because I'm not really sure how much you're going to be wanting to gank bot lane. If you're the Ashe Alistar lane, I think there's a little bit more of a chance that bot lane ganks are going to go well, and obviously, we really do want to see as many ganks right here out of Nocturne, whereas for Skarner, I don't feel like Port particularly needs to be laying down a ton of ganks early on, especially not really bot lane. None of these lanes particularly feel like massive opportunities for getting a big lead, and potentially you don't even need it right now. You could just have a pretty chill early game, try to farm up as much as possible, not fall behind in terms of farm to your Nocturne counterpart, and potentially try to counter gank, if anything.
Absolutely, and I think one thing to focus on as well, just specifically in this bot lane, where I think a lot of the pressure will be in the early stages of the game, is this Alistar, as usual, gets forced off this early wave. That means the Roland the Jinx will now start slowly pushing under this tower. They need to make sure that wave can bounce before Nocturne is coming down here, before the enemy bot lane gets level 3, because if you're getting ganked by that level 4 Nocturne, as well as a level 3 Alistar Ashe on you, it can be very, very hard to get out. Even with the flash, even with your mobility, getting all the way from tower to tower, through the Ashe slow, through the Nocturne, through the Alistar, usually you're going to be burning sums at the very least, and it's highly likely that they can grab a kill or two out of that situation as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it would be definitely preferable, let's say, to be able to avoid that situation right here. We're having a look at the top lane matchup, not necessarily the most interesting of all the matchups, but could be incredibly impactful once we get into the team fights, or potentially even just into skirmishes around the Herald and the Grubs. A little bit of vision, just going to be spotting out exactly where Nocturne is. That's pretty huge, actually. You really do want to know where it is that Scouse is at, because not knowing that could really impact on, you know, getting a gank right here. You're pretty far pushed up in this lane. Of course, you do have Pop in the area right now, so Spark and Zeta, they don't need to worry so much. They do have counter gank potential, but knowing exactly that Scouse is there is definitely useful.
Absolutely, and I think just knowing that you have that sort of window to step up, and knowing that you have that safety of this corner behind you, thinking, okay, we know that Nocturne is absolutely here, but Archon is level 4, we have the bot push, we can fight this now, and that is exactly what's happening here. Fear does come down, stun through into the wall by Pop, flash away. The Scouse will make his way to safety, knock up coming through from the Alistar, headbutt all the way backwards. Mario now trying to pick up his first kill as the Alistar is forced to flash away to safety. No one going down yet. The flash forward from Zeta. Mario does still have flash available, but won't have a single chance to use it as Pop flashes over the wall, wants a little bit more. The zap coming through means the Alistar has nowhere to go, and 2 early kills for Brod and Friends. A fantastic start to them with that bot lane prior that they had.
Absolutely, and the amount of Somnus spells that have been blown as well is huge. Scouse no longer has that flash, you don't have a ghost onto Mario. Water also has to flash, and you end up dying on both of the bot laners. This is going to be a full wave pushed in underneath the tower. No turret plate's going to be collected. The wave clear isn't particularly fast right now for Spark, but this is just going to be a decent amount of golden XP missed, and a very free recall for the bot lane, who are going to be able to get back into lane with a decent little advantage right here. You can see a serrated Dirk right now in Spark's inventory. This bottom lane is all of a sudden significantly favoured to Brod and Friends, and the kills, they go over to Pop and Nemly right there. It's all from that bit of vision. You know where Scouse is going to be, you know what the Nocturne is going to want to do, wants to get that scuttle grab, and you play around it. I love the aggression that Brod and Friends showed up as well. This is a lot more what I was expecting from this team, and it's just a great start to this game so far.
And I think the way that the gold spread out from that fight actually ended up being very, very good, because yes, the Jinx didn't get any of the kills, but she was allowed to get a massive CS lead, so now about a 400 gold lead in terms of stats right now in this lane, as well as catching this wave that's coming in as well. The Orianna down CS, but was at least able to pick up the kill, so still up gold. Same with the Skarner. So
Yeah.
they may have lost a little bit of pressure, maybe a little bit of the CS, a little bit of XP, but up gold pretty much everywhere, up on stats pretty much everywhere. In the top lane, you know, two big guys just having a good time.
Yeah, they're gonna be chilling until we get into these skirmishy moments. With the grubs spawning relatively soon, we could have one of those moments in just a little bit. Bot lane, we do have that Drake spawned. It is going to be a Cloud Drake right now, removes Cloud Soul from the map. And it is actually Scouse pinging that he wants to go and pick up the grubs right now, pretty much conceding the bottom lane over to Porp. And it will be, interesting to see if Porp decides he actually does want to go and pick up this Cloud Drake. Can be useful, a little bit of extra movement speed, never hurt anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have the Sion all the way down here helping you. You know Gragas can't move. The Syndra should be able to move quicker than the Orianna as well, just able to push out those early waves a little bit faster. Pope now looking to see if he can make something happen in that bot lane, trying to slither into that tribush and get in behind, but nothing to be had here, so they will just be a trade of objectives. 3 grubs for the Drake. I don't think you mind the grubs. You'd have a Sion, you'd have Demolish. You can get the early push down quite well. So if they aren't able to get an early soul, I think you sort of take this trade if you're G.
Yeah, it's not going to be a trade that either of you are going to be particularly worried about. Something incredibly important to note right here is that Scouse has now hit that level 6, so you have got the Paranoia up and available to you, and with that Sion coming straight down mid lane, I think I know where they're going to want to use this.
Yeah, Double Charge coming down. They don't actually want to give the Drake, they want to fight for both, and Spark now does have Flash and Barrier available, taken down very, very low, and the Q knockup is cancelled. Paranoia now available, landing onto the Jinx, who does have
Doesn't die!
Summoner still available. The Barrier keeping her alive, and Pulp on the backside is the one who goes down. This Rel will have no Flash available as the ultimate comes. The Row Sion tanking up those shots 1, 2, 3, a couple of stacks in, and they don't really lose anything anywhere for that. Obviously no TP on the Sion, so might lose a couple places in the top lane, but Grubs and Drake all picked up.
Yeah, that was an incredibly impressive snap decision right there of Good T, and showing the way that this composition works. You have to get those long-range global ultis to help you out there, and the fact that you run all the way from top lane as Shin and still hit Spark in the bottom lane with that ulti is crazy. It was only out of some very quick reaction times from Porp and Zeta that you didn't end up dying. Chova now, though, gonna have to flash. Loses a pretty key summoner spell off of a little bit of aggression right here out of the support from Bottom Friends. You don't get Spark, so you're still down a big chunk of CS in this bottom lane, and you lose some turret plating top lane and some CS. I still think that's a pretty worthwhile trade. You're going to be more than happy with that as Good Chi, but that's such a tricky play to make work repeatedly. I'd have to think the Bottom Friends, now that they've seen that play happen, don't fall for it again.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things to focus on for Chi especially is getting first Drake and first Grubs is such a sort of powerful position to be in, because you basically have control over what the next objective looks like. If you want the 6 Grubs, you can fight around them. If you choose to play for the Drake, you can fight around them. You don't really have to concede much, and you will always end up in a situation where you have some sort of advantage over the enemy. That being said, they are still in a position where they need to start slowing down this Jinx. Spark miraculously didn't have to use Flash in that fight. Maybe a little bit greedy, maybe just knew their limits.
Calculated.
Was able to get away and is still up about 200 gold, even with those 2 assists coming in on the Ashe. This Jinx will be scaling massively and is their main source of range in this team, right? Without her, they're all very, very close to you, very, very short, very, very easy to deal with. That Jinx gets ahead and you can't get near her. That is where the problem lies.
Absolutely. It's going to be tricky. You do have good backline access tools if you can make it work. Still plenty of body blockers as well, so yeah, going to be a pretty big target right here on Spark's back. Honestly, I'm shocked by how even these two teams are at this point, because we've had a decent amount of action for an early game. We're only 9 or so minutes into the game right now, but still, both of these teams have kept themselves basically within touching distance. It's 200 gold or so for Bottom Friends, pretty much all calculated on top of Spark's head. But other than that, you're not in a bad spot in the top lane, in the mid lane, jungle. It's really just this bot lane where there's a little bit of a disadvantage, but it's not even massive. You're not massively far behind right here, and Spark is still going to take 3 items to really come online, and it's not like Spark has been accelerated massively. If those first 2 kills had have gone onto Spark, then maybe. I don't think it's a bad thing that they went onto Pawp and Nemly, but you're not massively far ahead in any of these lanes.
Absolutely, and importantly, Pulp is down here in the bot lane with Grubs spawning relatively soon, which means if they look to force a player, it could lead to great advantage, but Paranoia now available coming down onto the mid lane, and I think that will just be enough damage. What's coming through from both of those champions, Rel will bring down that horse. Pulp trying to knock Morrow into the wall, doesn't just about reach. Water may have to tank a death here. Does still have the flash available. The flash Impale goes wide. The Ashe will live, but ult no longer up for Water. As the arrow comes down, but it won't be enough to keep him alive. Mara will have to try and make something out of nothing here as the dive will come through. I think they've tanked it well enough instead of not even really needing to tank that extra hit, but they do pick up both and they will pick up a lot of plates. They lose their mid laner for it and they will lose 6 grubs on the backside.
Yeah, 6 grubs is going to hurt. You have a very good split pusher in the Sion. Sin is going to be more than happy to have the 6 grubs in the back pocket, and the 2 kills going over to Chova could be pretty impactful as well. Syndra is a very strong champion at the moment, but you finally get that kill onto Spark. Zeta unfortunately manages to steal away that first kill onto Water. That was really unfortunate, you know. Spark had it, there was an auto attack incoming. I don't know what it was, some sort of burn damage, or maybe the last little bit of auto attack damage out of Zeta just about takes away that kill, but it doesn't really matter. It's enough to get that collector finished up for Spark right now, and that's going to be a huge benefit. You're now up in items in your individual lane matchup, you're in a very strong position. Same thing for Chova, though. Chova now does have that first completed item, so Nemly's going to have to be very, very careful. Sit pretty far back in order to not just get one shot.
Absolutely, but importantly now with this Drake coming up, you will have the Paranoia back up. You will have the Unleashed Power back up on a Syndra who does have Hextech already. Choosing not to use the ultimate there, I think, just not quite sure if that was going to kill them.
That was Shockwave.
Yeah, that is Shockwave down. No TP available, no flash available. They might have to seed this Drake, and that means they would be giving second Drake as well as 6 grubs away. So Nemly's going to have to try and get back here very, very fast, and they're going to try and snap a play on this bot side, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you just want to keep feeding the Jinx, to be honest. I like that as the decision. I think right now that is absolutely your win condition. Top lane hasn't really been a factor, and mid lane isn't having the best time. But I think Water and Mario, they're going to know that. They're sitting pretty far back, not going to be too overly aggressive. It's going to have to be a dive if you want it, and anytime that there's a Nocturne on the board, you can get a response to a dive so incredibly quickly that it's always a real risk to try and make a play like that happen.
Yeah, but the Stride Breaker picked up now by Scouse. You have item on Nocturne, you have item on Syndra, you have both ultimates available. The Arrow is back up now as well. This could be a very, very huge team fight for Chi. With all these ultimates up, with that power in the Syndra, if she can get anywhere near Spark, they could just reduce that Jinx to atoms, take the Mountain Drake, and with that, yeah, the Sion's is moving first every time as well. I mean, yes, you're giving plates up to Gragas, but you get so much pressure on these objectives.
Yeah, getting a good bit of mid lane push as well, getting that priority for the team. Full 5 members around for this Drake, and that does just mean it's going to be conceded right here. Pawp is hovering about. It would be incredibly bold to try to go in for this one. Indeed, they don't. I don't even know if you can try to pick yourself up a little bit of a team fight afterwards. And Gragas isn't exactly a plate melter at this point in the game. Looks like it's going to be a 3rd plate picked up, so it's a decent injection of gold into Gov. But that's it, right? You get a plate bot, a plate top, but all 6 grubs, 2 Drakes, that's not great for your overall map pressure.
I mean, exactly. We're up about 800 gold here for the side of Broad and Friends, right? But then you look at contextualizing that, you're down 2 Drakes, you're down 6 grubs, you have literally no objective pressure. If you're able to get that first tower at the very least and start winning some team fights, that'd be very important. But if they can't slow down this charge of the soul, if they can't pick up the Herald, then this is where Chi are going to start pushing those objectives to very, very good use. They have that pressure of the Mountain and the Cloud, and Pawp just looking for something here to maybe get that first tower down in return for the Rift Herald. Yes, we have no flash on either Morrow or Water. Pawp coming in from behind. The headbutt does come out. Rel landing that stun. No cleanse available for the Ashe. The tower's taken down. Jinx getting very, very excited. Does get hit by the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but the ult comes down as well from the Jinx. The Death Rocket takes down 1. Water will go next. 2 kills with the Collector for Jinx. That is plus 50 gold, as well as the first tower. 3 kills, 3 assists. We're down pretty much every objective in the game, but we're pushing for a tier 2 on a Jinx who might just completely take over this game.
Yeah, I mean, this Jinx is looking disgusting at this point. It really is Jinx and Friends, the composition, and you can just take this one down. First, tier 2 tower is a massive injection of gold. You can see huge amount extra going into everybody's back pockets right here. And the golden bot lane has exploded. Yeah, look at that. Sorry, can we go back to that, Zoe? Because the bot lane is insane. 7k right now on Spark to 4.3 on Maro. That is a disgusting gap. That's a canyon in terms of gold. 2 full items completed right now for Spark. Hasn't even completed the tier 2 boots. Doesn't need it. Isn't worried about having to run away. Knows that the rest of the team is going to be good enough to buy him space.
Yeah, the Jinx going for that early game lethality build, which does give her a lot more sort of initial damage, not as much sustained DPS, but the zap is nuclear, the rocket is nuclear, those autos coming in do a lot more burst damage. What it does mean is she's going to have to spec into more crit later in the game just to be able to deal with that sound a little bit more, but we are so strong now that Scale of the Week comes in, Flash and Barrier both available. I don't think that's too much of a worry. Pope now looking maybe to find an Impale onto mid lane, but nothing to be found here as they waddle away from this fight. And you know, you got those 2 Drakes, you got 6 Grubs, you got Herald, but how much are we willing to lose?
Yeah, it's really interesting just how much the objectives have not been the focus right here for Bron and Friends. They don't care that they're down these Drakes, these Herald, these Grubs. It doesn't matter to them. Because what matters to them right now is just funneling gold onto Spark. They've conceded the fact that Nemly isn't going to be a strong position. Nemly is a Shockwave bot, and the Shockwave isn't going to do the most damage. Because who cares? It stops people from running at our Jinx. Or it pulls people towards our Jinx in order for her to kill them. Gov right now in a little bit of trouble. Has to flash because Chova would have just picked up that kill. Chova is also doing a ton of damage, but is only 1 item completed. 2 full items on the Jinx at this point. I can't get over it. It's crazy.
Yeah, 2 full items will have boots on the base as well. I don't mind the lethality ability just because of how much sustained engage you have, right? Getting that zap down, getting those ults down. When you have the Skarner, Orianna, and Rell going in, you don't really need the Jinx to be autoing 10, 15 times in a fight. You just need her to get that first reset and then start pumping with the lethality damage. And those first 2 items in already, I mean, you're looking at a champ which can deal with an Ashe in like 4 or 5 autos, and it feels really, really bad if you're the enemy ADC.
Absolutely, it does. We've hit into a little bit of a lull period right now. Although that being said, Pop immediately wants to go in onto water.
Oh, Impale goes wide. Stabbing the wall with those 3 little grabbers, just grabbing a couple chunks of rocks on our way out, but we'll still be up. I think, actually, might not be up for the Drake fight, which would be a little bit rough for them now with not as much engage tool. Does still have the Rell, does still have the Shockwave, does still have the Gragas as well. So layer all that with the Jinx damage, you should still be fine, but not having the Impale may hurt their chances at locking down those carries.
Because you really don't want to give up the next Drake, right? Surely. You're not looking to give up Soul Point at this point in the game. 17, 18 minutes in. That would be incredibly early. It would give a lot of map pressure over to Chi. They could then just begin to concede Drakes if they want to wait a little bit, get themselves back into this game a little bit further. So surely you're going to have to fight for this one. 12 seconds until the Drake is going to be spawning. 2 minutes still on the Baron, so it's not going to be a Baron for Drake trade at all. Gov could go in here. Obviously, you're not going to be able. You can't pick up the Nocturne, obviously, but you can potentially pick up the Syndra. And if you get the Syndra, that's a ton of the damage from Good Chi just gone.
Absolutely, as they do have full pressure over the river. Now that Herald will be dropped down in the mid lane. They could look to push for 2 towers here, but I'm not sure if they're willing to give the Hextech for it. TP's coming down from both teams. Spark now playing around that bot side. It will be interesting to see if they get the reset off the Dragon. The Jinx could go crazy here. The arrow does land. Drake's still up. They've landed onto the Jinx. She doesn't get a reset. Now has it on the Nocturne. Jinx pumping on the backside. There's nobody who can reach her, and she will be free hitting 1 target at a time. The Ashe trying her best to slow them. The rocket comes through now. A second reset for the Jinx. Maro, the next point of focus, flashing away, will just about survive. But the stuns coming down now. Shin knocking them away with the blast cone, and it is a 2-for-1 with Drake going the way of Bron and Friends, removing the soul pressure for now. They lose 1 turret in return.
They do, and I think another thing worth noting is that giving over a Hextech Drake, a Hextech Soul with all 4 Hextech Drakes to Bron and Friends would be pretty devastating. Jinx is a lover of the Hextech Soul. You get to slow people in a chain when you hit them and deal a little bit of extra damage. Wonderful. I'll run through them that much faster. So, Rod, they're looking really good right now. It's almost unfortunate for them that they didn't get more kills. They just ran out of slows and stuns, but the more items that we get onto Rod and Friends champions, the easier that is going to become. And you saw the real issue and exactly what we were worried about with this Nocturne playout. Sorarium Scouse goes flying into the backline, lands on Spark, does blow Spark's flash, but it doesn't matter. You know, the rest of the team was there. I think even without the flash, Spark was probably going to be just fine because Sorcerer Scouse doesn't do that much damage. The Stridebreaker build gives you a bit more survivability, but it doesn't give you nearly enough damage to just immediately execute an incredibly fed Jinx. And then you're in the backline, just going to get taken out anyway, you know? It's not going to be conducive to a good game right now unless Sorcerer Scouse can get something different going. Right now, it's not looking good.
Absolutely, and I think the most worrying part about it is that, as we see Zeta here, Scouse is walking straight past the Rel as the Stormer gets knocked up here, hit a bit away. Silas now going down onto the Rel. Fear will not go through, but Pulp just getting taken down.
Oh no, the arrow
comes down onto the Jinx as well. No summoner spells available to deal with that. The shutdown will go through onto the Syndra. One more Scad of the Week. Gets the Rel. And a complete slip-up of a fight. I'm not sure what Broad and Friends were looking for, but just completely lost in the topside river. Baron will now go the way of Chi. And after that fantastic fight they just had, you have to wonder what happened here.
Yeah, they just lost their minds, I think. There was no reason to be stepping up and playing so aggressively. I know you're in a strong position, Broad and Friends, but that definitely was not the play right there. It's not going to be the fastest Baron take that we've ever seen, but there really isn't a response. Pulp is dead, Spark is dead, that's basically everything you would have needed to mount a bit of a comeback onto this Baron. Completely gone. It's a push onto the mid lane tier 1 tower, but that even gets responded to right here by Water, and they have to walk away. You get nothing out of that play and lose so much.
This Syndra is becoming a huge problem on the backside of the fight. Deathcap coming in a couple of books as well. Get our reading done. Well, that Dark Seal is stacked up to 6 now, so a lot of AP on that Syndra. Level 14 already at minute 21, so we'll make her way to level 16 at the very least before this game enters its final stages. As well as that, the Jinx, still no flash available. We're up for the Drake fight, we assume, but it's shown that Broad can bleed now.
Yes, they can, and never a good position to put yourself in. Really unfortunate for Broad and Friends that they just walked into the river there, but it is a completely self-inflicted wound. This composition works super well in a choke point when you're all there, around an objective when you're all there, but it doesn't work so well in disparate parts, and unfortunately they just got themselves caught out. Bad decision making has cost them a lot of the lead that they had enjoyed for so long. They're even now down in gold, about 1.5 down. Which just feels bad when you were so far ahead. Let's see what Chi, though, can do with this gift they've been given. They capitalized on it really well with getting those kills, getting the Baron. Now they need to push for objectives and continue this gold lead.
David, Jinx is up 2,500 gold, and the whole team combined is still down 1,500. They are losing absolutely everywhere else.
Yeah.
And the problem is with this Jinx, she doesn't really have enough damage to deal with all 5 champions because of that lethality build. It's a lot more, you know, find a pick, go next, find a pick, go to the next person, and they don't really have much of a way to make that happen right now. Pulp really struggling to get in here with this Baron now pushing through. Could look to snap on Gov, but very interesting to see if they can find a way to Spark before that flashes back up.
Looks like they might want to try for a play right now. Everybody is around this top lane, but the Baron minions and the Grubs doing work on it. They're already dropping down well below half HP. Very tricky right now to step up far enough to actually stop this cannon minion from just slowly but surely chipping
no one who can
away
hit the cannon.
Tower. No, and Maro can just keep throwing down all of these volleys. There's the engage.
Oh, the flash in from Zeta. Does land stun onto 1, but they have to be very careful here because the turret is about to fall. They have no more protection for themselves. Sion lands that knock onto 1. It will be a single reset for the Jinx. Scouse flashing forward as 2 members go down, but the Jinx is still alive. Spark free hitting onto as many members as he can. Sion now full charge Q, but Jinx playing that ranged rush. They can flash forward. The rocket gets flashed into by Water, tanking it for his carry. Maru against Pulp in the backside of this fight. I think the Ashe might just about go down, but no. Will pick up 1 more kill, and with all 5 members dead, Rel coming up in 10 seconds, they will look to open as much of this base as humanly possible. I don't think they have it in them to end just yet, because Orianna will be up in 10. But that is a big fight. 5k gold lead.
It really is, and it was just an unfortunate miscommunication once again. The initial fight was good. You end up picking up 2 kills, losing 2 members. Honestly, when you're in as much of a dire strait as you were right there for Broad and Friends, that would have been a positive. But Gov thinks that you can go for a little bit more. Spark gets left alone. And like you said, this Jinx really doesn't have the ability to just shred through people. Now that you've got yourself that eye edge, it's going to be a little bit easier to actually just sit and hit. But beforehand, it really was not working in that fight for them. Zeta might just be caught out here. Rel obviously pretty slippery, manages to get back to friends, but the Drake has been started up, Soul Point if Good Chi can pick it up.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Skarner will have any time to get into the pit here. They will be taking it down to 4k, 3k, 2000. No time at all for Porp. 2-man hits with the Scion ultimate. The knockup comes through on the backside of it as well.
Arrow
Cass
lands.
coming down, and the arrow hits Spark in all of this. I don't think he was even aware it was coming his way. Flashes out to safety. Porp will be soon to follow. Zeta goes down. 3 members fall again, and this is blowing up in Broad's faces. The Soul Point for Chi.
Absolutely, and we said, Good Chi, they looked a little bit like the stronger team, although their composition, we weren't the biggest fans of it. It doesn't matter, though. They know how to play this one out, and they are pushing to potentially look to end this game right now. The mid lane inhibitor will at least fall. You've got 13 seconds until Nemli's back, 15 right now for Gov. I think ending, again, might be a little bit beyond them, and I don't see any reason why Good Chi should overextend themselves.
Uh-oh,
Moro, what was that?
Moro now does get grabbed by this corner, but I don't think they have enough to follow through here. That Scion just too much of a wall. And this is something we talked about. The lethality jinx are very, very good, very, very early game, but it's a bit of a greedy build, you know, because you lose one fight, suddenly your jinx can't kill the absolute monstrous juggernaut of a Scion that stands in front of you. And who can?
4.5k health. Nobody. You've just got to sit there and hit the Scion and hope that nobody else is there. But he's got 230 armor. This Scion is an absolute beast right now, and this is what happens when you allow a Scion a free lane and then to roam around. Gragas was not able to punish this Scion. You know, the Scion's out of lane for 2-3 minutes during laning phase, but it just doesn't matter because the Gragas doesn't push the waves or hit the turret hard enough to be able to actually punish and make it so it's a big decision for Shin to get out of that lane. It was a very easy decision. I think that early ultimate from the very top lane to the bottom lane was just such a great call, and although you still got a lot of kills on Spark can still look good in this game, the rest of the team just has not been able to get it firing.
Absolutely, and we mentioned as well the Soul. Hex Soul, so good on Jinx. But Hex Soul on Syndra, Hex Soul on Ashe, you know, you hit a wave with a spell and suddenly your entire team is crippled. This could be so, so devastating to play against. And especially with Maro now sort of coming into the game, you know, you don't need Maro to be that damage threat, you just need Maro to be that utility champion. Landing the volleys, landing the arrows, making sure the enemy team can't play the way that they want to play. We're down 3k, don't care. Plus 20 LP.
Yeah, let's keep pushing this one forward. I think, unfortunately, Good Chi are going to require themselves a Baron to be able to really siege against this composition. There is a lot of good wave clear right now for Broad and Friends. At this point, you know, the Gragas can hit the wave incredibly hard. Spark, if he can step up far enough, is going to be able to shred through this one too with the rockets. And yeah, you can see Good Chi, they're really butting up against nothing, although they do have big minion waves pouring in through the top and the mid lane. In fact, this one's even going to manage to hit a little bit onto tower, so this is the point at which they can actually start putting pressure onto this bot lane tier 3 tower.
Absolutely, but they haven't really timed the waves well enough here, so I think Broad will be able to just walk back down, clear this, walk back up, clear it, walk back down, clear it, and maybe wasting a bit of time here as Shin walks up. Notice no danger. Impressive scat of the week there from Chover, cancelling the Rel engage completely, and this fight looks really, really bad now for Broad and Friends. With that being said, the 3-man impale comes through from the Skarner. The Jinx getting reset after reset, but she's out of mana. She maybe won't even be able to rock it anymore. Shin tanking up that tower, an absolute juggernaut in the face of it all. Even with the impale, even with Spark getting all these resets, they all do fall. Moro and Chover, the last two standing, an undead Shin beating down on these towers, and with these waves, I think they will finally have their chance, and they will break open the Nexus of Broad and Friends. Good Chi go to 3-4 level with their enemy team.
Yeah, that is going to pretty much eliminate, I think, Broad and Friends from contention. Good Chi should just about manage to squeak their way out of Group B. And that game really is a game of two parts, and two teams who had very different philosophies. Broad and Friends, they wanted kills on their Jinx, and they got it. Good Chi, they wanted objectives, and they got that. And apparently, objectives significantly stronger. It didn't feel like Broad and Friends could really do anything, but it was off of just one stupid decision that they made, stepping up when they really needn't have, that lost them the Baron, lost them another Drake, and just put them in such a hole that they could not overcome. It's really unfortunate because there were some great things. Spark looked brilliant on that Jinx, but like you said, a little bit of a greedy build potentially didn't help out. And it looked like, unfortunately for Broad and Friends, they just couldn't get this game working in the way they wanted to. A lot of congratulations right there to Good Chi, because that was a very impressive game.
Absolutely. In that last fight, I mean, the scat of the week from the Syndra pretty much won the entire game in the end there. I mean, the Rel engage looked so good, looked like he was about to instantly snap onto the enemy, but getting cancelled mid-air meant there was no follow-through, meant even when that Scorner hit that 3-man impale, what now? You know, the Jinx got 1 reset, 2 reset, 3 reset, and then Sion was just looking her dead in the eye and saying, okay, let it
And
happen. You know, now
what
what?
are you going to
You're
do
all
to him?
dead. I'm on your Nexus. We take the game. And, you know, good job, Good Chi, and I think they've solidified themselves ahead of Broad and Friends now.
Yeah, absolutely. That is going to be it for us for this first game, but don't go anywhere, because in a minute we're going to have Verdant versus Paragon, which is a real clash of the titans here. We'll be back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to week 4, day number 2 of the Four Nations on the UKEL. And oh boy, have we got a big matchup right here. If that was bottom of Group B that we watched earlier on, well, this is the upper echelon. Especially with one of these teams, right? You know, Paragon, they're looking pretty good. You know, middle of the pack, they're doing okay. Verdant, though, Verdant are where it's at. If you're looking for clean League of Legends, this is the closest we've got to it in the UKL. Ruddy, they're at the top of their group, but they don't play clean. They play an absolute chaos style, whereas Verdant, they're pretty clean, and they've been looking so good.
Verdant are our resident LCK team versus the LPL we see over there in the other group. That being said, Paragon, obviously, you said middle of the pack, have been very good these past few weeks. You know, they're one of those teams that always tends to start off slow, and then once they find their footing, they get back into things. They look very, very good, and I think it's going to be a very interesting game to see today, especially because we're catching them at the top of their form. So, Verdant aren't unbeatable, do have that loss to their name, playing against a team at the top of their game. Will be very interesting to see how these two teams do face up, especially with some of the stuff that we saw last game. I think it'll be interesting to figure out identity as the main thing, right? It'll be interesting to see how these teams decide they want to play around certain win cons. We saw definitely the team that we thought had a better draft lose the game, which is always the case because we're casters and we're not allowed to make a single correct prediction. Otherwise, we'll be smoked by the world around us. But I think draft will have more of an impact this game because I feel like these are two teams that tend to play cleaner League of Legends, and also I feel like these are two teams who know how to push their win cons better. I think last game we saw a team give up 4 objectives very, very early in the game to funnel billions of gold into a single champion, and it blew up in their faces in a way that we weren't really able to come back from.
It was really fascinating watching the way that these two teams decided to play it out. I don't think we're going to see something quite like that. I think there's really 2 options right now. Either Verdant gets to play their style, and this is very slow, calm, collected beatdown, or Paragon blow this up in our faces, and this is the most fun 30 minutes we ever get to watch. I obviously am hoping for the second one, right? Not necessarily that Paragon win, just that we get an absolutely crazy matchup, because I love a lot of the players that we have on this Paragon roster. I think I've spoken more about Timotopper as a player than I have about any other player ever. I absolutely love watching him play, but both of these teams have just really stacked rosters, and rosters that are actually showing up for them as well. So the ability for both of these teams to really show up at the top level of their gameplay, because it feels like everybody is feeling pretty nice at the moment. You know, they've had their early season jitters. They're really warmed up into this point. I am unbelievably excited. We are going to jump on into draft right here. And so let's have a look at what craziness we're going to get pulled out right now. Verdant, their play style has been pretty standard overall. It makes a lot of sense to take away the Taric. I forget his name, the Taric, because the Taric has been absolutely dominating in the UKL recently. It's just been looking so strong.
Absolutely, and that's Gardner coming out as well. Just two very, very strong champions, but also champions that are very easy to play and very easy to find sort of win conditions through. Syndra coming down on the other side. I do like the Syndra ban. That is one of those champions where I feel like every time I see a Syndra, as well as the Yone, that champion just wins the game.
Yeah.
Right? If it gets to a certain point, they will just win the game, or at the very least stall you out for 40 minutes and make your life a living hell. So two very, very sort of power pick focused bans. They're getting rid of the Yone on blue side does sort of mean you may be looking at them priority picking something in the mid lane or something in the top lane just to get rid of that strong counter late game matchup. Taking a little bit of time to think about this last ban as the Jax does come down, which could indicate a lot of things. It could indicate certain top lane selections, such as Miss Camille, but I don't think it will. Oh dear. I need a sip of my Volvic for this one, Bloxer, because that is a champion that I haven't actually got the joy of casting yet, and I don't think I want the joy of casting.
No, I'm not a fan of this one. Not that I think it's bad. That's a very different thing. I'm not a fan of this one in games because if the way it just dominates it, it's so tricky to play up against a really good Aurora player. You really? Really?
Is this where we are now?
Okay. I guess we're only playing 2024 champions, first and foremost. Beyond that, the way an Aurora can take over a game early on does not fill me with confidence for the ability to get into a late game with a Smolder. Because obviously Aurora still does bucket loads of damage later on, but the Smolder takes a really long time to actually get online. And what are you pairing it with, right? You've had a lot of great pairings with the Smolder sort of taken off the board. Lee Sin instead, you know what? As much as this is an odd draft, it's a very Snipex pick. It's a very Snipex pick to go for this Lee Sin right now and just try to hands check up onto your opponents. I mean, what do we have still available? The Nocturne's been pretty popular. Xin Zhao, Jarvan, all of those are available. The Poppy could be pretty good. I mean, you'd be dissuading too many more dashes, and you already would stop the Lee Sin from really being able to play his game.
Absolutely, and as well as that, pairing that with the Aurora, that sort of double zone of death can actually be quite effective together. What I will say is there's a world here where we see Grasp Aurora against Grasp Smolder, and I think I might unironically throw up everywhere in my room if that does end up being the case, because I don't want to live in that reality. The Lee Sin does fill me with a little bit of hope that we could get something exciting going on. I think it tends to be paired with more aggressive solo laners, so I'd be surprised if a Smolder did go top of it off that alone, but they do have that flex pick available just in case. The Poppy, nice little counter, paired with the Aurora, and the ADC pick coming in now will definitely not be good. Guys, the buffs weren't real. The buffs weren't real. It was like a little bit of spread damage on our Q. It's not even...
Okay, there we go. The Jinx, I prefer significantly more. We saw, obviously, what a Jinx can do last game. It wasn't, I guess, the best showing because it did not manage to take over the game in the way you really would expect, but with a slightly more standard Jinx build, it can really take over, and we never got particularly late into the last game. One or two mistakes that we ended up seeing out of Gucci kind of just ruined it for them. Sorry, out of Broad and Friends kind of just ruined it for them. What do you want right here to drown things out? You've got a Smolder, a Lee Sin, so a pretty early game pick and then a very late game pick.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here's
what I will say. Aphelios, I've been playing him recently. Feels very, very good. I don't think the buffs did that much. I think mini placebo, the HP, feel good in lane. You feel a little bit buff. You feel a little bit tankier. You feel a little bit more like you can take these early game trades. Into Aurora Poppy, I have certain fears in my heart.
Yes.
Aphelios is like the immobile ADC, right? He doesn't have the move speed that you get with a Jhin. He doesn't have any of the sort of CC that some other champions have.
He can't slow you like an Ashe. He just stands there.
He's the immobile ADC. And that into a Poppy Aurora Jinx, this guy could just get atomized within seconds of any team fights even considering being started.
But that being said, we get late on into this game. And, oh boy, I don't think your Jinx holds a candle to the fact that there's a Smolder in the mid lane and an Aphelios in the jungle. Sorry, in the jungle? Jeez, no, thank you. An Aphelios in the ADC
Get him
position.
out of there.
Now, that would be cooking too hard. I know Paragon liked to cook, but that would be a step too far, as we are going to see full top lane bans going on right now. The top side of the map really hasn't been touched too much so far. And the fact that we do now know it is officially going to be a Smolder into the mid lane, I've got to be honest, I'm not fully caught up on how the Aurora Smolder matchup goes. Maybe that's on me. Maybe this is something that is super standard at this point in the game. I really, really like this Ornn matchup. Sorry, not matchup, pickup right here for Paragon. But they are, again, really leaning into the fact that the Lee Sin is right now the only early game insurance that this team has, and it's all about getting you to those later stages, because Ornaments, plus Smolder who's hit smacks, and an Aphelios who's on 3 to 4 items, that is a winning combination. I think Verdant really need to try to lean into trying to get things going early on for them, a way to punish the Smolder, punish the Aphelios, because if they too try to get into the late game, the champions are good late, don't get me wrong, but they're not this Paragon comp.
Now, one thing I will say is, a lot of people may be fooled into thinking Lee Sin doesn't make any sense here because we picked 3 scaling champions. What is that guy doing there? You can't play off any of the lanes. Lee Sin can thrive, especially in these games, because he allows those games to be sold out extremely well. If your Aphelios, Smolder, and Ornn are being pushed out, Lee Sin can punish that so well. Especially if you get the Graviton from the Aphelios, if you get the Ornn at level 6, even if you get the Smolder popping a couple slows, getting free stacks, he can create those moments where you're stalling the game out, getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kills, pushing the game as long as humanly possible to where that Aphelios, Smolder, Ornn are Exodia together, right? Those 3 champions in the later stages of the game are ridiculous to play against. You'll be outranged, you'll be out CC'd, you'll be out tanked. Unless you can find a pick, it will be impossible to play fights.
Yeah. The Scion does give you some late game tankiness that should be pretty effective, but also both Aphelios and Smolder can deal with the Scion pretty effectively. Those are great ADCs for trying to chunk through that amount of HP. Yes, the Lulu I think works really well. This is a great draft out of Paragon.
I like it.
once we get later on. Early on, it's a little bit iffy, but Verdant really haven't taken it to them. This is not an early game composition out of Verdant really at all. They too want to get themselves into the later stages of this game, get their Jinx some items, get the Scion tanky and a million charms onto the Bard. That's the point at which they really want to play this one out. And the Poppy, it makes sense into the Lee Sin, but it really is only the Lee Sin that you're particularly trying to stop with that Steadfast Presence. I guess you've got a little bit to do with the Ornament. Does it stop Flap Flap? I'm not even sure if it stops Flap Flap. It's not dash, it's just a speed up.
I'm as far as I'm aware in the coding, it doesn't stop Flap Flap. He's allowed to do his little flippy flappy over the walls. But yeah, as well as that, you don't really have like lanes that are that guaranteed in terms of getting like when you look at the Jinx Bard, for example, they should be pushing out the Aphelios Lulu, but you're not really guaranteeing push. You're not really guaranteeing kills. You're just getting push.
Yeah.
And you're just getting maybe a bit of a CS lead. You're not going to be 3-0 into this Aphelios unless Poppy's camping your lane. And the Aurora probably the most volatile of these lanes, but again, into a Smolder in the mid lane, quite a short lane. Smolder can flap away the tower. Lee Sin, early game, able to protect that as well. And finally, we see an Enchanter. I think people are really, really sleeping on this Lulu pick, especially in the UCO, because this last meta, a lot of nerfs came through to champions with low attack speed, and a lot of buffs came through to champions like the Jinx, not directly, but things like item pricing, things like the damage on AE, things like Ardent Sensor being very good pickup again, right?
That's
So
nice.
Lulu Aphelios, incredibly strong bot lane duo right now. If they get to the later stage of the game, just pop that little picks on your ADC, Ornn, ult down, Smolder, queuing people from halfway across the map, and they don't really have ways to snap onto them, right? Like you have Scion ult, you have Bard ult. If the Bard ult whiffs, what do you have?
I think the real answer to that question is this little champion that was picked pretty early on called Aurora.
Not real.
It's Aurora as your real answer right now, because if this champion does get ahead, it's insane. It can, like you said, atomize either the Aphelios or the Smolder. There are solo kill opportunities in the mid lane. There are roam kill opportunities in the bot lane. I don't really think you're going to be going top lane Scion versus Ornn. Could result in solo kills, but I don't really think the junglers are going to get involved in that lane. Potentially, it's a bit more of a wet noodle fight, but mid bot lane, there's a ton of opportunity right here that you can try to get the Aurora into. So it is going to be, putting quite a lot of pressure right now onto Bettry. What can you do, Bettry? Can you pop off and really take over in this game? We've seen it happen plenty of times, and Verdant are not the top team in Group B for no reason. They are there because they're an incredibly good team, and this is a very Verdant composition that they've drafted themselves. I just think Paragon have managed to pick themselves up a really interesting composition that I'm very excited to see play out.
Definitely. I think I very much prefer the sort of way Paragon's comp would play out. One thing I will say is that Aurora champion is one of those characters where you just love having blue side because you B1 the Aurora and it changes everything about your philosophy, because like she can just kill people.
Yeah.
Like she can just find this Aphelios and one shot in the back of fight. She can just pop her ult and find these targets so easily, and she's so slippery and she's so hard to gank and so easy for her to find kills, and she can get these leads and she can pressure other lanes, and that PowerPoint on its own can just be the cornerstone of a winning team when you pair it alongside enough of these sort of frontline champs and a Jinx pumping in that damage as well. You get a reset with just 2 Jinx ultos and an Aurora combo onto Aphelios or like Smolder, and then things start to spiral in that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to jump to a short break just before this game, but it is going to be a real clash of titans here, so don't go anywhere. And we are into game for Verdant up against Paragon. These teams are right at the top of Group B right now. They are looking to secure their final standings right now in this group stage. And what a matchup this should be, because the team compositions are absolutely wild. Both of us thought that there were a lot of very interesting moving parts right now. I think there was an overall feeling that perhaps Paragon's team composition makes a little bit more thematic sense, but at the same time, Verdant, they have things to play around.
Absolutely. I think we mentioned a certain bunny-eared freak in the middle lane of the map, right? Is the Electrocute Aurora as well, so we'll be focused very much on just that one-shot combo that she's able to put out. We'll have great push into the Smolder as well, who's opted for that Grasp scaling build, Grasp scaling in the top lane, Conqueror scaling in the bot lane, Lulu scaling in the bot lane, and then the Lee Sin mixed in between it all, making sure that early game is as healthy as possible, trying to make sure the enemy doesn't just steamroll them into those later stages.
And Lee Sin is good at that. Like you were saying, if you ever overpush trying to punish any of these lanes, is great on a gank, good on a counter gank as well, and to be honest, can be really good at isolating one of these targets out and allowing the rest of your team composition to blow them up. Because sure, the straight up 5v5 front to back composition really works for Paragon, but if you can also just get into the backline and kick either the Aurora or I think preferably the Jinx into the rest of your teammates and they could just blow her up, then that's a great start to any potential fights. This mid lane matchup though, Timotopper is good on the Smolder. Beartree, I haven't really seen him play this Aurora, but I have to assume he's going to be pretty good on it too. Solo kills in the mid lane I don't think are beyond the realms of possibility, but like all games we seem to have, bot lane is still likely going to be a pretty big focus for both of these junglers.
Absolutely. Mid lane is one of those lanes where the Smolder's going to be trying to get Grasp procs and the Aurora's going to be trying to get Electrocute procs, sorry. So they will be trading back and forth quite often and maybe get those health bars a little bit low, and that's when the Lee Sin and the Poppy start to come into play, right? If you have a 250 HP Aurora, 300 HP Smolder, suddenly the Lee Sin comes in with a Q, you're forcing out summoners. Getting that first blood in the mid lane, I feel like could be really pivotal here. So it remains to be seen, depending on how these trades go, whether the junglers can get there first, whether they're able to really punish. Timotopper already down to about a third of his HP, as the Aurora still sitting nice and pretty with 2 health pots available. Should be a little bit rough for the Smolder to get through the early stages of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the Smolder, it really doesn't do very much at this point in the game. It tickles pretty much, but beyond that, isn't expected to really be popping off. It's later on, once you can get those 225 stacks, that you're really scared of the little dragon. For now, not going to be too scary at all, but it's been a very calm first couple of minutes. The most interest does seem to be in the top lane, where Refresh is taking a bit of a beating right here off of Kenji.
Really nice combo there from Kenji on the wave timer. Nearly had the level advantage as well, so taking a huge chunk out of the Sion. Both laners with that biscuit as well as Timotopper just getting bullied out here by the Bard. They did have that bot push and knew that the Aphelios was base, so nice little timer. Moves up, forces the Smolder out of lane. This wave is being held over here by Beartree, so that Smolder's going to be missing out on quite a bit of XP on now.
Oh, my lord. Okay. Yeah, this is always a possibility. What did we say, right? This feels theoretically like a wet noodle matchup, but it isn't, because you have Ornn the Assassin in the top lane, who's just going to be able to pick up that solo kill, build a Kindle Gem as well, and just stay. Doesn't even need to go home. He's perfectly content to just stay in this lane right now. That's crazy. I mean, it's very, very Ornn. It's very Kenji as well. Has been an incredible top lane for Paragon recently, but at the same time, I'm always in awe whenever this happens. Snipex now potentially looking to make this even worse. If you can get a kill onto Refresh after he's just blown the TP, that would be devastating for this lane.
That way being forced to push up here. Now the Sion does have flash available. I don't think they'll have enough to kill here, but the Ornn getting that first bit of CC down with the knockup. Ward jumping behind, red buff slow, permanently proccing. Don't think the Sion will have to flash just yet, but with the Q coming down from the Lee Sin now very low, waiting for that knockup. It does go in. The execute from the Q2. If they can get away from the Sion passive now, that is really, really huge. Refresh still has the flash available, dying twice already on the Sion. I don't think either of those was really a good death.
Nope.
Poppy will walk up to claim that golden XP, but suffering is the Sion.
Indeed, indeed. It is at least not the complete end of the world, because Tofu is in the area, gonna stop that wave from being completely pushed onto the tower, but you still miss all of that XP, all of that gold as Refresh. Dying after you just TP back to lane, having died, is one of the worst things you can possibly do in League of Legends, especially as a top laner. That can completely ruin your lane, and Genji now gets to teleport back to the lane. Obviously, it doesn't really have to buy too many items. It's perfectly content to do that in the lane. But you give a kill over to Snipex, you get this Lee Sin on the board, and you just continued your dominance in the top lane right here.
Importantly here is Brian just trying to get more poke onto that Smolder. Even CS in mid lane, right?
Yeah.
Has that tier slowly stacking up. Obviously, not going to be really winning many fights, but you're not that far behind. Down a bit of XP, maybe down a tiny bit of gold, not really even that much gold. You have that top lead, and all your scaling lanes are stabilized. Nothing crazy's happened. You have Prio over this dragon. Paragon are finding very, very good plays early in this game.
They really are. There's not really too much that I would be able to say Paragon are doing wrong right now. The fact that they're also going to be able to pick up this Drake before the grubs even spawn, so you could potentially go try fight for them too, is just a little bit of bonus on top of what has already been a very pretty looking early game. Bot lane, there is a decent gap in the CS, right? You are behind a pretty big margin right now as last. But that's the only thing that we're really being able to say, that's not going great. Ultimate
We'll coming in here from Tofu, not going for the charge into the wall. It will be just an ignite used by Brian. Flash on the other side from the Smolder, as well as that ult to clear out the wave. So a little bit of trade of summoners, but the Smolder lives on. Yet again, no flash now on the Poppy either. Does have the Hex Flash, he'll be able to make these plays over the wall. And with top lane pushed out, they will just go for the grubs as Snipex tries to make something happen in the bot side.
Yeah, I mean, just going to still await a couple of camps. It looks like right now for Snipex, not exactly the best trade you could ever ask for, but not going to be too bad at all, as Kenji continues to, you know, show a little bit of dominance up in this top lane. Doesn't actually have the CS lead that he would have really liked, considering all of the pressure that he was able to produce on top of Refresh, but still not the end of the world. Snipex is going to get bullied away here a little bit by Brian, but Snack isn't going to die, not going to be too worried about that one. What I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by a kill in the mid, well, it's an attempted kill in the mid lane, was that, yeah, sure, Lasp is kind of behind in terms of CS, but has a cull, doesn't care, isn't looking for kills in this lane, is perfectly happy to just keep on with what's happening right now, proc that cull, and then really you can start getting aggressive.
Has a cull, but also has a Lulu and an Ornn as well, you know? So, like, the longer we go without dying, the longer we feel like this affiliate is going to be a huge problem, especially in these team fights. I think it's one of those games where you kind of want to be playing a little bit from range. Getting in with the red-white, I don't think is an option here, but playing with the green-white, playing with the green-blue, finding ways to do spread damage, leave that single target damage from far away. Alongside the Smolder, that poke is just really horrible to play against. And again, the Smolder up CS in this mid lane, even with that pressure from the Bard, even with that pressure from the Poppy, we're kind of just fine on gold.
Yeah, there's no real issues, it looks like, right now. Everybody's chilling, you know? This feels good. Despite the fact we had 2 kills early, it really hasn't been the most explosive of early games right now. That could certainly change. We now have ults available on everybody, so that's the point at which you can really start trying to pop off as Snipex. Kenji also has that extra level of setup, but it's a lot harder to then gank onto a Sion because you can just use Unstoppable Onslaught to just run away pretty much. I wonder if we will instead get to see a little bit more of a focus down bot lane. We did just watch Bear Tree wander down to the bottom lane, have a sniff, see potentially if there was going to be a kill, but it would have been a very ambitious dive, and with the wave nowhere near the tower, unfortunately that one fizzles out, and Verdant have to just keep going with the way that this game has been happening so far.
Absolutely, and I think, although not much has happened recently, I think that favors Paragon massively. What I also think is that I really like their choice to go for the Drake here, with all that top lane power that they got, with the early kills they got, turning that into bot pressure and turning that into a dragon. Their team is strongest around 3rd, 4th. Item is, I have to be careful here as the Aurora and Poppy both moving in for something. No TPs available to stop this dive from happening. Tofu sitting on the backside. They're trying to run away, but they don't know the Poppy's waiting for them. Hex Flash coming down now. Aurora goes into the portal, knocking up Sack. Will immediately ult herself to try and get away to safety. Last flashing in though with the red white, trying to chase down this Jinx while she's alone, but he may have bit off a little bit more than he can chew and doesn't really know where to go anymore. The ult does come down, but 4 members of Verdant are sitting behind him on the other side of the map. They're trying to make a top dive happen in response. Last, the track room's coming down. There's quite a few. Sion dies on the other side, but it's 2 killed in the bot lane, as well as a lot of summoner spells lost as well. Lee Sin picks up his 2nd kill, but Poppy does the same.
Red-White's always a pretty scary set of guns to see on an Aphelios you're planning on diving, but It doesn't matter. Loses both the flash and the barrier, isn't able to pick up a kill, really does not do anywhere near enough damage to make that play work at this point in the game. And it continues to be a bad day right now for Refresh, but I just wonder how much you're actually going to end up caring later on in the game. Like, you're a Scion. Sure, I'm not going to be the tankiest Scion ever, but you're still going to be tanky. You have so much innate tankiness in the kit that it's very tricky not to be tanky as a Scion. And so all of this punishing happening, sure you're getting kills, you managed to get that first item completed onto Snipex, but I think getting those 2 kills in the bottom lane is going to possibly mean even more. It's unfortunate that Tofu picked them up. You would have really liked both of those kills to have gone over to Fuyu, over to Bear Tree. Instead, the Poppy is going to get that one, just going to be even stronger right now, Unending Despair. He's strong.
As we see a bit of a combo coming out here. There's no flash available for the Scion, no unstoppable charge either. Snapback will just sit behind him, doesn't have the kick, but they do have enough damage. That's the 4th death for our Scion in the top lane. A 3rd kill for Lee Sin, just funneling himself as much gold as possible so he stays relevant. But I think the main thing that I'm worried about for Verdant, or that I would be worrying about if I was Verdant as well, is that this Smolder's on 9 CS a minute and got 2 solo plates mid. Right? Everything you're making happen, this Smolder is just having the time of his life. He's up 500 gold on an Aurora, stacking well, stacking the tier well as well. And now trading this Drake for the grubs, you now have 1 apiece, 3 apiece. You have to feel like this scaling comp is starting to get to the point where they're thinking, hey, we're in a really good spot here to play out this 3rd Drake, to play out this 4th Drake, to play out these soul fights.
It's going to have to turn to fights pretty dang soon. And for right now, Paragon, they are in the slightly stronger position. The gold lead is only about 1,000. You are seeing a lot of that is into that mid lane. There's also a decent chunk in the jungle as well. You know, Snippets. Getting that extra kill is going to be helpful. And let's see. Because bot lane could still be punished. You know, there's a lot of pressure still being put down from this Bard Jinx. But having a good time wandering around, picking up as many of the chimes as possible as well. Mid lane.
Mid lane, good cancel there from Kenjungo. The hammer from the Poppy not doing anything. Will step back, tried to E away from the Bard ultimate, but it got cancelled by that golden. Nina's Bear Tree now trying to do some more damage onto the Ornn, onto the Smolder. Snepex finding his way in, but the kick won't be enough to finish off the Aurora. Ryan getting that last slow onto Lulu as both teams will walk away unharmed, but limping a bit.
Yeah, nobody's going to lose their life, but we do end up with a lot of summoner spells, a lot of ults being blown right there, and Refresh getting some alone time with this tower in the top lane. That's going to be decent for trying to claw back a little bit of the disadvantage that we have seen spring up in the top side. Bear Tree doing a ton of damage to Timotopper. Timotopper needs to be careful here.
Timotopper might just die to this next Q if it does land. Has flash available, we'll have to flash to the side. I think we're so desperate to get that wave in. Yeah. Does at least secure himself a 30 CS lead, so, you know, minus flash, but flash a little bit of gold on that Aurora.
Trade, worth. Totally worth, right? You've got that Spear of Shojin now completed, so you're getting towards the point at which you're in a strong position for Timotopper. It is, it's certainly an interesting decision, though. We'll leave it at that for right now. And the lanes, they continue to go back to just being push. Not too much explosive likely to happen for a couple of minutes right here, although Timotopper without flash is looking a little bit juicy.
Topa coming in here, but I'm not sure what the play there really was. No angle to really find a kill onto the Smolder there, even if you do get him into the wall. I'm not sure they had the damage to follow through on that with no Aurora ult available. And we'll just pick up the blue buff now, and chilling on the tower with the Shojin, with that tier. Jinx up a considerable amount of CS in the bot lane, but with that cull almost being finished, the Aphelios will start coming into the game a little bit more as well. And once this 3rd Drake spawns, the Cloud Drake, I think these teams might start to show their true colors a little bit more.
Yeah, actually starting to fight. I mean, both of these teams really want to get a lot of items onto their main carries, and so it makes sense that although we're having skirmishes, although we are seeing kills going down, they haven't been the most explosive plays that you've ever seen either, you know? It hasn't been massive multi-man skirmishes beyond that one that we had really in the mid lane. Now we should start to see teams beginning to want to actually scrap each other, right? You haven't got those 2 to 3 items yet, of course, but that's going to be a while away anyway. Right now, Sniffix is going to be heading on towards this Rift Herald. Picking this up could be huge because unlocking the Smolder to get him into a different lane could be great. You know, you can rotate around, maybe buy yourself some bot lane breathing room because you really haven't been having a good time right here as Last and Sack. And instead, just allow Sniffix to move somewhere else, continue funneling in gold. It just opens up a lot of possibilities having this Herald.
Absolutely, and I mean, Smolder, one of those champions who is just so happy to sit in a side lane and not really do anything for a long period of time. Pick up that second and third item, pick up those stacks. The earlier we get that execute, the better. Could be a chance for a dive here. Tofu looking for something onto last. The E does land, but not into a wall, so the purple gun, Graviton, will be enough to slow them down and walk away. But the Jinx getting excited here. Bardol comes down and that trap will follow through. Aphelios, what were you still doing there? Trying to get away now, but the damage coming through one by one.
Oh,
they
no.
will find one more auto with the Infinity Edge from Fuyu. The kill does come down as the tower does too. The response in the mid lane, though, is to push onto the tier 2. Timatoper and Snipex trying to get as much damage onto that tower as possible, in return getting a few stacks. May, in turn, lose their tier 2 in the bottom lane for it, though, is maybe not Fuyu just trying to step back away from this one and Sack holding strong.
Oh, it looks like Snipex is going to go on a little bit of a mission right here. Is he going to make the right choice or the wrong choice with where he steps up to? Now, they don't know.
They do now.
Oh, no.
We found it now. Snipex stepping up. Does have the kick available. Kick through the bar. Does have Q, but can't go through that Poppy. Ult does come down. Smolder calling his mom. Timmy will have to flap away those. The Jinx does get excited, flashing forward. Getting those grass procs, getting those Q procs. But now with 3 members, the Smolder is not yet at the point where they can start executing these champions. And it seems like Paragon bit off a little bit more than they could chew here. Sack overstaying as well. Being turned down by that Poppy, but will just waddle away from the second point of that Q.
Just about going to be able to survive his sack, but I think the damage was already done. That was a 500 gold shutdown going over to Refresh. That goes a long way towards bringing this champion back into relevancy in the game. And what you trade it for is an outer tier 1 tower in the top lane. I see the vision from Snipex, but unfortunately the execution just is not there. Verdant, they're aware of the play that's happening. Don't step into the trap. And just rotate more members around. Kenji has the teleport, but never finds an angle to use it. You don't have Lasp involved in that fight either. Sack only gets there at the very end, you know? It just does not work out at all for Paragon, and that's a huge swing in gold for Verdant.
Definitely is. Now Snipex trying to find something on the board. Will be forced to portal out of this Drake pit as these teams are both setting up. No TP on the Scion is important to watch out for, as Kenjin does have that TP and Call of the Forge God both available. Level 12 Ornn could be a huge difference maker in this fight. Doesn't want to TP down unless it's absolutely necessary, though. Seems like for now Verdant are forced into this top side of the river, trying to get that mid push at the very least, and they may just be conceding this. Tofu looking to ult Snipex out and then flash in to pick it up for himself. Won't actually go for the flash. Will just ult away the Lee Sin. Does flash now though. I feel like there were cleaner ways to play that, Tofu.
Yeah.
But you got the Drake for your team and you can walk away with a smile on your face.
It works. Hey, I do not care about execution. I just care about results, and that is going to be the Drake going over to Verdant. Yeah, okay, I wasn't the best, but it's fine. It's all good right now. First items all completed, second items are well on the way for a lot of these champions right now, and with those 2 Drakes going over to Verdant, with it being the Cloud Drake as well, I think you can make good use of a Cloud Soul for Verdant's composition right now. Paragon, I'd say the same thing, to be honest. 2 pretty good Cloud Soul enjoyers, so it's going to be a bit of a scrap over who can really take over control of that one. And we're still yet to really see a 5v5. It was a clean steal-ish. You know, when you bop away Snipex, there's not really anything that Snipex can do. This could turn into a brawl, though, potentially. This is Verdant stepping up quite far for a blue buff.
So Snipex will pick it up and also take over to level 11 in the process. Right now, though, the game still relatively even overall. I mean, only 300 gold difference. Both teams are even on grubs. It's 1 Cloud Drake advantage for Verdant, and when you still have that threat of the Smolder sort of lingering in the back, he's been getting stronger and stronger and stronger over the course of this game. This Aphelios, if you can find a way back into the game, get a kill, get that Jinx shut down, then you're right back into it immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a nice, juicy shutdown on the head of the Jinx, as if you weren't already incentivized to try to kill this champion. Certainly does help. Not going to be another Drake for another 3.5 minutes, but it is going to be a Baron in less than a minute's time, and both of these compositions have pretty quick Barons. Paragon's, I think, is a little bit faster. This could be something.
Oh no, Last being caught out by another ultimate from the Bard. Now everything will come through on top of it, and before he could even move, he does get taken down. Call of the Forge God now on the backside of this will return a kill. That is the Aurora going down. Double kill for the Smolder, and it looks like the engage has turned massively against them. A triple kill for Timatoper. Won't chase any longer, but the Dragon is completely online. 3 kills in the back pocket of the Smolder. A forced dive has failed tremendously for Verdant.
Yeah, the initial kill is great, but they're not able to disengage the fight. They end up fully involved in a fight that they did not mean to take. And now they're just going to be able to push forward to pick themselves up another tower. A Paragon can't head straight towards the Baron, not going to be up for another 10 seconds time, but is in a very strong position with good mid lane priority right now to be able to potentially look for a Baron. Not necessarily right now, but pretty soon. I mean, you've lost a couple of big ultis if you're Paragon, but Verdant also used a ton of what makes their composition tick too.
Yeah, but importantly right now, Timotopper is going to hit that execute in the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So probably won't be up for the Drake fight, but will be up very, very soon after. With probably a second item coming in now as well. That champion is just tripled in strength.
Absolutely. I mean, you say second items coming in, you've now got 2 on top of Snipex, top lane as well, and Kenji has hit level 14, so we are beginning to see the ornaments available. This could be huge. I would imagine that that first one is going to go over to Timotopper, and then you can think about giving them over to Last or to Snipex, you know, just keep this Lee Sin as relevant as possible. This Paragon composition really is getting online right now. The only person struggling for gold at the moment is Last. You know, Last hasn't had a great time so far, is still sat on 1 item, some boots, and 0 components. But as an Aphelios, you'd still deal a decent amount of damage. You know, 7k is pretty far behind pretty much everyone else with very expensive items in the build path as well. So it's not surprising that he's fallen behind, but at least you're not the only AD threat. You know, you've still got the Smolder to rely on, who just finished that full second item and got that upgraded Spear of Sojin.
Absolutely. I mean, 2k gold lead on that Smolder in the mid lane in a matchup where scaling is really the name of the game. And even if they don't get this next Drake, which I think they may still try and fight around, we mentioned that execute coming in. If you can just get your Aphelios into a playable position, doesn't need to be strong, doesn't need to be the carrier, just a playable position where he's enough of a threat that he can be outputting damage, make sure they get into that execute range for the Smolder, then you have a winning comp on your hands. You have the Lulu around to make sure that the Smolder is kept alive, even if she doesn't have the Aphelios as the main carry. You have the Ornn, not only for the engage, but the disengage. And you still have Lee Sin outputting a good amount of damage and utility with the kick, with some of the shielding. So I do think they have a strong team fight, especially if the Smolder can just take over that execute as soon as possible.
On the other side, though, you are in a very strong position right now as Verdant Drake going to be spawning in less than a minute's time. All of the pressure that you put onto Refresh early on, and Refresh is still up in CS, still has 2 fully completed items in a very good spot. And Fuyu is very strong.
Yeah, Timo gets execute in this fight, or at the very least before it, only 5 stacks away, so if they give him this wave, that'll be at the very least 3 or 4 stacks from here. So a single ability hit in one of these team fights actually gets the execute perfectly off that wave. This fight might turn in their favor now. Call to Fortune coming down instantly, Wing away the Bard ultimate, but can't get the recast on. Snipex in the backline, dashing away, making sure he's keeping 2 members of the team on his own. Snipex kicking the Jinx out. Ooh. Aurora trying to make something happen. Snipex almost landing the Sonic Wave onto the backside of the Jinx, but the Lulu gets the hugify.
He lives!
Snipex is still standing, and the executes will start coming through for Timotopper as Verdant run away with their tails between their legs. The shutdown is picked up by the Aphelios. The only man struggling has found his prize. Ornn, Aphelios, Lulu, Smolder, Lee Sin, all 5 remain standing, God knows how, as they work their way up towards the Baron.
Yeah, they're going to go for the Baron right here, and why not? Tofu is alive, but none of these main carries are. You do have teleports on Bear Tree and Refresh, so this could potentially be a bit of a risky play. Timotopper has decided to stay bot lane, does have the teleport to go join the team, but was you know, bringing Tofu down towards him. That means that there's no response towards this Baron, and it is just going to be picked up right here by Paragon. I mean, you can potentially Bard ult it. No, don't even have that available.
They haven't spent any of their gold yet, so it's taking a long time for them to break this now. Smolder is TPing in, but Refresh is up now, so this could very quickly turn into a 5v5 Jinx. Not close just yet, but those health bars getting chunked down really hard. Snipex almost killed by the Aurora alone, and they're forced away from the Baron. The problem is now Verdant have a chance to maybe look to take it themselves. Snipex wants to heal up as quickly as humanly possible off these grubs to make his way back into this fight. But while all this is happening, Jinx has joined the fray, and not a single one of these members, other than the Smolder, has backed. So yes, he bought his items. 3-man Bardle to stole as much as possible. And I'm not sure they even have a way into this pit.
Just flashed.
Brian is 1 man holding him out. Bear Tree almost one-shot the Lee Sin. Does one-shot the Lee Sin. Poppy ult lands onto both bot laners. They get the Baron. Kenjingwa looks like he's dead inside the pit. Sack 1v1 of the Aurora on the backside. Timotopper getting chunked down. Huge fight does land onto him, but he doesn't have the damage to get a single one of these executes. Maybe Tofu will drop just about, but he's running away. Shut down,
Oh,
picked
that's
up,
huge.
and the pullback
Burn.
from Bertree not
No.
enough to kill. Sack is not a single burn item available, but what looked so good for Paragon has been thrown back in their faces.
Indeed, they decide to get a little bit over aggressive and go towards the Baron. They have a very fast Baron take, but without the Smolder, that is nowhere near as effective as it could be. And there's more than enough time for Verdant to respawn, to get over to that Baron and stop it from happening. And there were some huge shutdowns that went over. Verdant have catapulted themselves back into the lead. They're up to 2k. Paragon tried to get, I guess, what is a bit of a consolation prize Drake, despite the fact all of this fighting started at a Drake 5 whole minutes ago.
Yeah.
What a crazy set of plays. Get your breath back, because that was insane.
Well, I mean, Paragon here really sort of throwing what they had worked so hard to achieve. They, instead of deciding to maybe just settle, maybe just take the dragon, maybe just take a few towers and base, they really wanted to push that advantage. They wanted to find a way to turn this into basically an instant win. And it ended up biting them so quickly. Lasp didn't base with all that shutdown gold, so he was still sitting on just an IE and basically nothing else. Whereas the Jinx on 2.5 items walking back into that fight, yes, they had just won a team fight, but did nothing with it. So they were so much weaker.
Yeah.
Also, their health bars were chunked. Also, a couple of sums were missing and some ultimates from that last team fight as well. And they just, it was a bloodbath.
They deserved it, unfortunately. Paragon made a bad decision, and they got punished for it. That is what Verdant do to people, you know? This hasn't been the cleanest game from them. They're really having to work for this one. It shows how good of a team Paragon are too. But if you give Verdant an inch, they will take it, and they will take the whole mile as well. Now, you've got stacks, you've got ornaments. Paragon, their composition is online at the same time, though. Verdant with a Baron buff and a composition that's also popped up are looking pretty good. And Bertree is popping off. We were talking about it. What can the Aurora do? Apparently, one-shotting the Lee Sin is what they can do. Hang on.
I mean, the unstoppable charge coming in now from Refresh, and all that damage coming down onto Timotopper. He is able to just about get away, and that first execute could come in on to Tofu. They've run out of damage for the Smolder now. The second execute will come in. Kenjingwa picking up that kill. Lasp now taking the portal, trying to find a way onto the two bot laners. Meanwhile, Aurora pushing in that bot side onto the inhibitor. But they, at the very least, were able to stall out a little bit of that push in the top lane. Their base will be slightly more open. But those 2 kills have slowed down the blue team push for now.
Yeah, for now is the key, though, because you still end up losing that tier 2 in the top lane. You get some big kills. That is good. Tofu potentially wanted to go in onto Snipex, recognized that potentially that was going to go wrong for them. But Bertree really is just running the map right now. Nobody can go and contest single-handedly for you.
You're getting big damage here onto Sack. Not able to get that first reset just yet. Last, all 3 of them living about 1
Oh my,
death with that
there
first
it is.
Down. The burn from the red buff. Timotopper forced the flap over the ball. Getting that 3-man splash and the burn as well might just dissuade them from pushing in a little bit more. The Ornn standing in front to make sure they can push out that wave. Kenjingwa does get that E down, but no one to knock up available. Big ult, possibly. Snipex now trying to find his way onto Fuyu. Fuyu forced the flash away, trying to get that kick into his team, but not able to get behind the Jinx. That's 1 reset. They're also low. Can Timotopper get these resets in and force the backstep away from the Bard ultimate? Kenjingwa flashing forward, but if he gets taken down and he lowers, another reset for the Jinx. They trade kills 1 for 1. Unstoppable charge from the Scion. Refresh. Can they get onto Timotopper? They can. They take down all 5 members. Lapsed will respawn, but I don't think it's enough. Blocks for Fuyu will get these resets, and they will look to take their 5th win of the season. Lapsed, what can you do? I breathe hope into his game, but I don't think there's much here. Refresh stepping forward. The big Inferno ultimate does come down. Lapsed doing about 3 damage per auto to this Tofu. Brian chasing him down as well. The 5th member will fall. Snipex up in 5 seconds, but I don't think he'll even be alive in time to watch his Nexus explode. Verdant turned a losing fight into a 1 game, all in the space of 2.5 minutes, and they go 5-1, pushing Paragon into a negative 3-4.
Wow. Verdant, they really had to fight for it. They really had to try for that one. That was not an easy win.
No.
But my god, when they sense an issue, they go.
Man, they smelled it. They smelled that from a mile away. As soon as that Baron was called, you could tell, right? You saw the Poppy immediately sprint top. You saw the TPs come down. You saw they said, no, there's no way they can do this. They're greedy, and they punished, and within 2.5 minutes, the entire game was flipped on its head. They're pushing you down into your Nexus. and boom, you lost the game right from a position where you looked like you were going to maybe close out.
There were multiple fights there that went for 5 minutes straight.
Mm.
You know, we started with the Drake, we fought until the next Drake spawned, and that's how the play ended. And that top lane play, that was started with a Sion ulti. There was another Sion ulti that happened about halfway through that team fight because it just kept going. There were crazy
Mm.
fights the whole way through. If we
Mm.
can get this matchup again once we get into best of series, I think that's going to
Mm.
be incredibly fun. I think there are many situations in which Paragon make the right decision around that Baron and manage to pick themselves up that win. But these two teams, they're looking great. Verdant, though, I think they're looking like potentially the best team in the league right now. Ruddy, they are also looking so strong. I can't wait to watch those two teams match up.
Absolutely, and just the ability to bounce back from a lost team fight like that so quickly within, well, quite literally the space of seconds, right? To acknowledge the fact that, like, hey, let's pick our heads up. Yes, we lost that fight. Yes, we may have made a mistake, but we know what our win con is. We know how to capitalize on their mistakes, and we know that they're messing up here. Let's make something happen. Incredible play by Verdant in those last few minutes of the game. I think, yes, Paragon dropped the ball, but they showed some very, very, very bright moments there. I mean, the Smolder looked really good for 80% of that game, I think, bar maybe one or two little fights, but definitely a lot of positives to take away.
Absolutely. Two teams that I'm very excited to watch going on forward, but it is going to be another win for Verdant. We are done for the day. Thank you very much for joining me, Dry Salad. That was an incredible set of games, great casting, and long team fights. I'm impressed by your lung capacity there.
Fantastic. It was great to cast with you again. Of course, hopefully we get back together sometime. And yeah, to the people taking over from us for the next two games, I hope you have bangers like we did for the York
Yeah,
Tier.
absolutely, absolutely. We've got two more amazing matchups coming up in just a couple of minutes' time, so don't go anywhere. From me and Dry Salad, though, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next couple of weeks.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Four Nations freshly squeezed analyst desk. Now joining you for the third and fourth game. My name is Trajan, I'm joined by Temporal and Pivotless as my analysts here today. Now, to quickly round up what we just witnessed here, Verdant taking the win after a pretty strong early game from Paragon. So, as a quick roundup before we move on to games 3 and 4 of Pivotless, why don't you tell us a little bit about the bot lane dynamic here? We saw the Aphelios coming out here, struggled a bit, and I think you had some feelings about Aphelios in the patch, maybe, if you want to wrap that up into some bot lane meta chat.
Certainly. So bot lane meta in general shifted quite a bit. Nerfs to Jhin help a lot with the AD carry role, but moreover, it's these changes to Collector and Essence Reaver going lower in price. Not that that mattered, of course, because neither AD carry built them. But Aphelios just got flat, straight buffs to his AD, just in terms of how he skills. Of course, he doesn't skill abilities, he gets more AD instead. It makes him pretty happy, it makes him synergize better with the Infinity Edge, but ultimately, Jinx and Aphelios share similar identities. Normally when Jinx is good, Aphelios isn't because she does all his jobs better. And we saw that come out to a degree here. Also, it helps the fact that Fuyu pulled ahead close to Flame Horizon levels of CS. But outside of that, yeah, it's just Jinx took over the game a bit.
Yeah, it was a rare but exciting Fuyu on a normal AD carry game, and he certainly popped off. You know, we like to see that every now and again. Temporal, is there anything else from 1420 that you think could be shaken up here today now that we have some analysts to break down that patch?
I think we've seen a little amplification of something we've actually seen at Worlds today, because it sort of curves into the patch better. And it doesn't matter if your top laner goes 0-3, 50 CS down. You give them the experience in the side lane. Time to kill is up so much that Olaf, who was massively far behind, like a Poppy, who wasn't quite there up against something that can deal with a tank, can have so much utility later on at walking down an AD carry, at providing threat, at being sort of great value with these cheaper items, with the items that kill them much, much slower. That I think playing to a side lane and sort of extending out that mid game really does mean we're seeing more reversals in League of Legends as a whole.
Yeah, Verdant demonstrated, gave us a nice example of one here today, picking up that win. They are now pulling away from Group B. It's a very tight race between the other four teams in that group, but Verdant finally putting a little bit of daylight between them and the rest of the pack. So they're feeling pretty safe going into the imminent playoffs run. But as we switch back over to Group A, where we're taking a look at Venom Crest Serpents versus Nuclear Vikings, we have a little bit more stratification here. Nuclear Vikings sitting pretty at 4-1. Ruddy, of course, at 5-1 with an extra game played. And Venom Crest having a bit of a mare at 1-4. Very slow start to the XD4 gamers, but we have started to see a little bit of development here over the last couple of games. Temporal, from what we've seen against Venom Crest in that Ruddy game, you want to talk to us a little bit about what some of the good things, some of the developments that we have started to see out of the Serpents?
Yeah, we've seen a few less sort of immediate crushes where it's like clear there is no comeback. This Venom Crest roster in Div 2, previously D4, and that over summer as well, did well off holding on for that late game. Is something the patch is now favoring. Remember, we are on live. The LCS copied us. We did it first. And that sort of niche has opened back up for them. They have seemed more cohesive early on, so we're starting to get the separate pieces. I want to see if they get glued together because there's obvious risks with cohesion. Feelings and vibes do a lot for teams like this as you go later, and you can get into that comfort zone. You have to not pull the trigger too fast. You have to not get too overexcited or indeed too nervous to where you don't feel comfortable interacting with the opponent.
Yeah, they did survive pretty well in that early game versus Ruddy, and Ruddy is arguably the most lane dominant team in the Four Nations. You know, there's many things we can say about Ruddy, but they are very, very strong individual players, and being able to just come out of the lane more or less clean is something that not many teams can claim to have done. So Venom Crest certainly showing something good there. Matthew and Reeton especially stepping up a little bit in that bot lane, getting back to that strength that we've seen from them. But they are somewhat running out of time to put it together. As we'd said, 1-4 right now. DMG and Vertex have both shown us notable upside on those other players of the group. So you can see the roster for Venom Crest right there on your screen. Pivotless, what do you think? I guess for Venom Crest Serpents, how much of a chance are you giving them to catch up to DMG and Vertex, given the good things we have seen, the flaws that they still have? Do you think Venom Crest have it in them to actually pull the catch up?
I think it depends really heavily on whether or not DMG and Vertex both continue to show the kind of wildcard nature that they have so far. Of course, we've seen Vertex up to this point. Ruddy's only loss, and of course we'll get to that a little bit later on in more detail. But the fact that they've been able to pull that off, whereas whilst Venom Crest their first time around against Ruddy, they put themselves into a really good position but couldn't convert, would suggest to me maybe they just don't have that kind of edge to their play, that ability to take games off the top teams when they're putting themselves into good positions. So far, I don't see the consistency I would require to see them contest. And I also see a little bit too much from DMG and Vertex in their ability to challenge up there. That could, of course, all change today. They are taking on a team at the top of the table in Nuclear Vikings who, with a game in hand, have the opportunity to tie up first place. And if Venom Crest can take this, can prove that, hey, we can mix it up with the big boys, then opinions will start to sway.
Yeah, it feels to me as pure kind of eye test that Nuke do look a little less good, a little less inherently dominant in the games, but they are a team that just keeps winning, right? Even though, you mentioned Vertex getting their win over Ruddy, we saw most of a very good game before from Vertex as well. We're going to talk about them a little bit more in the final game of the day, but we saw them take that first win against Ruddy. We saw them go 30 minutes versus Nuclear Vikings with even gold, despite being down 11 kills. Like, it's impressive to maintain gold at that point in the Four Nations. It's not a sight rarely commonly seen. So there's something there. You're absolutely right. They have something to play for, and we need to see that spark, that something from Venom Crest before too long. But for Nuclear Vikings, Temporal, how do you feel about my assessment that they are just a little less good on the eye test? Do you feel that they're actually worse in some ways than Ruddy? Do you think it is a trick of the eyes and they do actually have a strong quad that they're playing through? Or I guess, what do you attribute their continued winning to at the end of the day?
It's kind of hard to sort of come out cleanly and say, like, yeah, in the solo lanes, these guys are going to do it. They are very strong, and we mustn't underestimate that. If we're marking Ruddy as the top of the scale, these guys are still a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. They're not pushing it to them in individual lanes necessarily, although it's not impossible and it wouldn't be a massive surprise to see things go even. But the cohesion, the coming together, and I think the knowing when to strike and not having the game just be a runaway success does lend me to think that maybe they'd be a bit cleaner over a series and they'd be more controlled in that fashion. It's that preparedness and that sort of serious vibe I get from Nuclear Vikings that sort of lets me be confident in them. So a different style,
Yeah.
to be sure.
Yeah, like you see so much power out of Ruddy in certain states, and you see so much clownery out of them at the same time that you have to kind of temper any hope necessarily. And they've always a chance that they could just toss it. It feels like a team that could just
against
toss it
Team
anywhere.
Vertex, possibly
For example.
in a previous matchup.
I wouldn't even say
that might have
tossed
happened.
that. It was off the cliff at minute 1, and they never got it back together.
Yeah, the car was never on the road in that game. It was a bit of a nightmare. But as we get into the draft right here, Venom Crest with a chance to take the win over Nuclear Vikings, a win they are becoming increasing dire need of, as the bans are fairly meta-focused. Aurora, J4, LeBlanc on the side of the Vikings, Skarner, Ivern, and Syndra for Venom Crest. So some mid laners, some junglers heavily focused out here, and we'll see what the B1 is going to be. We back to the B1 bot laners. Jhin is now nerfed, so hopefully, maybe, no B1 Jhin. Perhaps?
It's a Flight Quest special out of Venom Crest. That's an odd set of bands.
Certainly still playable as regards to the Jhin, but Yone with the buff on this patch when he was already, frankly, not in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
More of a general world special, I guess, this draft.
Yeah,
it's just they didn't ban Yone? Okay.
Whilst, we've gone through some pretty hefty itemization changes and Yone did not come out on the best side of that, he does still have access to that Stride Breaker build. It feels really good for him, and hey, we'll just give him a little bit of help in terms of his crit scaling, so he's in a very happy spot now. Of course, that Ivern ban, relatively targeted towards Fruity Carrots, has shown a lot of the Ivern proficiency, and of course, when Ivern's gone, a lot of Shen. However, it would appear we've tuned into the World's 2024 main event broadcast, as Yone and Smolder will be traded B1 and R1, and I would kind of expect a jungle pairing here. There's also priority ADCs on this patch. Caitlyn got a buff, she's in a pretty good spot right now if you can unlock her, but it does mean showing your hand as regards to the flex early, so jungle would make more sense to me, and with the Amumu hover, there we go.
Still a little bit of flexibility as well to support if they want to go that way, and still go for, how's Misfortune faring in the bot lane right now? It's been a couple of patches since she's just been sort of hanging around at the fringes.
So-
Acceptable with the same vulnerability of standing
Yeah.
still is bad. Standing still away from your opponents, good.
Yeah,
Standing
tough to not
still
right click. Yeah.
anywhere near something risky is bad. It was a really slow R1-2 from Nuclear Vikings, considered they banned the LeBlanc last. They accepted the Yone Gambit, because if you leave it, you can't pick LeBlanc further down. Wukong in for a combo. Both teams might just be angling up for huge 5v5 here.
Yeah.
It does suit both of them, but you got to attack your opponent somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the side of Venom Crest and what they're building so far. Of course, they're in need of AP still, whereas Nuclear Vikings already kind of have their damage profile covered, and they're, it makes a lot of
There you
sense,
go.
right?
Sounds
He's taken some nerfs over time. He's taken nerfs strictly to his damage to towers with his passive, which is a really significant change to how the champion functions, given he's pretty live and die by whether he can get 5 plates. And already both sides starting to set up, okay, lots of layered CC, some very hectic team fighting, but me personally, I love Bronzodia. I'm always down for a Curse of a Sad Bullet time. I don't know that we'll see the Misfortune make it through, but Amumu Leone,
Yeah.
you've already set yourself up with all the world's CC. You have no need to pick any specific kind of champion out of your top and AD carry roles now. You're fully flexible.
I'm liking the way Nuclear Vikings are going with this more than Venom Crest so far. The value of Mercury Treads, we discussed the patch, but it's some more system stuff. Tenacity just got worse. It got more expensive. It's got moved around. It is weaker on a whole, and even if you're ahead, there's nothing that can replace that value strictly because it's hard to acquire stats. A rel takeaway as well. I wouldn't mind if Nuclear Vikings keep their sort of target in the bag till later on. We might see the return of Xayah. A Kaiser ban is weirding me out here. I'm not sure if that is just complete flavor.
Maybe just a strong champ that likes engages, perhaps.
But
is
it's
the...
so vulnerable and Ziggs destroys it.
Yeah,
Right.
I feel like Ziggs does destroy it, but I guess.
will shove her
Not
out of lane for
confident.
50 minutes straight. So
yeah, not confident, not confident in the Ziggs matchup. Perhaps Matthew, it's not something I don't think we've seen it out of Matthew before, and it can't 1v1 in the same way Ash can. So maybe not playing to his strengths as a player. So we'll see if that's maybe affecting it. The Ornn takeaway as well, more heavy CC frontline engage combinations. The Hui coming in, so still technically flexible between the mid and the bot if they want to go that way.
if you ask me, that's always going bot lane here. I think Hui neutralizes everything that Ziggs wants to do in the bot lane. Mage versus mage matchups, Hui tends to excel in bot. He's very happy to play with a Leona, and the main thing here is Ziggs thrives on having the ability to outpush his lane opponent. Into Hui, it's simply not possible.
Not happening.
The Alistar's very good at disengaging Leona, right? But he's also very, very good at getting access onto Hui ever. Strictly because all of Hui's CC tools, phenomenal at just getting Alistar out of his face. Of course, if you catch him with the fear in the middle of the knockback, there is no Alistar combo. So
Yeah.
I fear that Nuclear Vikings are starting to edge a little bit too far towards the ability power statistic in general, but that can all be fixed still with a top lane. Gnar blind, still very good, so not much change there, but we've tremendous team fighting AoE power from the side of Nuclear Vikings, whereas Venom Crest have started to diversify a little bit, giving themselves some more side laning power with a Gnar later on.
No, you can tell the year is 2024. 'Cause any other year, you just slam home Irelia here, and it's job done.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
allowed.
I think that's pretty good. Have you played Gwen this patch?
I mean, my assumption here is this is going to be like the Electrocute Lichbane build, honestly.
So good,
Kill
but the
champ.
standard build also still pretty good. I think the Electrocute is better into the Gnar. Your trading patterns are nice and tight. I think we're relying a lot on Amumu's passive this game to amp up over the slightly reduced power of magic resist. Curse
Tremendously.
hopefully going a bit further. But I still think this is pretty good. Nuclear Vikings, let's hope that Wukong isn't force of nature and the Kanik Rukin, else we might not kill him. But otherwise, pretty good.
These are certainly both going to slam into each other in big ways, which, as you say, it leans into their natural habitat, is slamming into each other. Both of these teams Venom Crest not for a little while, but have demonstrated clutch factor in the late games in previous tournaments. Nuclear Vikings have relied on that somewhat, I think, to get a couple of key wins. They're not necessarily either team is taking big dominance in the early game all the time, so whoever gets an early advantage, I don't know if I could call who is going to in terms of just on the teams. In terms of compositionally, do we have an idea of who is going to be controlling the first 15-20 minutes?
For me, it's always Venom Crest controlling the early game here. On the side of Nuclear Vikings, you're leaning pretty heavily into scaling. I feel like you do outscale pretty heavily in top side. When you look at the late game 1v1 in side lane, Gwen will always win it. Smolder is pretty good at bullying Yone sort of levels 1 through 5, and then Yone starts to take over the matchup a little bit. And Quasigs, you're just handshaking bot lane. So I don't feel like Venom Crest have completely free access to early objectives, but I do feel if you look towards like your early grubs and the like, it's Venom Crest's objectives to lose, effectively.
So I'm not sure I agree just on where Wukong sits right now. I've had a lot of fun role swapping to jungle this season, and there isn't a Wukong, even on current patch, that I haven't absolutely put in the trash can every time they show up to grubs. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if it was a while ago or recently. He's just not tough in the jungle. I think one jungle item and nothing else, or just a few long swords and ruby crystals, doesn't get this character through a 1v1 with a Mumu. We'll see what the threat level looks like, because I think who moves first off mid, you mentioned Smolder, can bully, but the push, Yone is so good at pushing E, sneaking a few cooldowns in, and then being like, right, wave's done, gonna go do the real thing now. Is my health at half? I don't care, I'll snap back out at the opportune time in 2v2. So this element of risk increases for both sides for me. I think leaving the Wukong on his own, it's a massive blunder. I think the push in mid is going to be slightly scary for both sides, because if you commit to it as well, nasty 2 versus 2s, there's not huge amounts of CC. The threat level is so high that something has the potential to go very right or very wrong.
Okay, so we have compositions, a split desk in terms of compositional favor. I think stylistically, it's quite a close matchup. The only big difference is the scores of these teams. Like, and I don't know if I'm doing Nuclear Vikings a disservice here by discounting them to this level, and maybe overselling Venom Crest due to what I saw from them in the summer. But Pivotless, do you think that this is like, are you giving a clear expected winner out of this game? Given all these factors, player names on as well, not just champs.
Play names on. I feel like when I think about Venom Crest and how a lot of their issues have been around drafts collapsing by the 3rd pick, and this draft seeming relatively cohesive based on eye test, I like the look of Venom Crest to take this one, honestly. I'm about it.
I'm about it.
Fair
Temporal thoughts?
I'm not going to
Agreements?
argue it away. I think Nuclear Vikings are probably going to take this down. I think there might be some drama. There might be some messages in Twitch chat calling one of us funny names based on, huge risky play that might go very right or very wrong. An explosive early game leading towards 2 teams that tend to take it late. Let's see some big punches. I'm leaning Nuclear Vikings. It's not like they will win 100%. There's something cataclysmic's going to happen.
Yeah, this feels like a good one. Feels like we're in for a very exciting game coming up here. So let's throw it over to our casters, Drake and Shibby, to take it away for game number 3.
Thank you for that, Trajan, and thank you guys for joining us here on the Caster's Desk. What's up, Shibby? My name's Drake, guys, and that's all I know.
They're gonna call this the USEL pretty soon if they keep having us on here. Two red-blooded Americans on the UKEL. I'm excited for this game. Yone, Wukong, Ziggs, we got Hui. There's a lot of cool stylistic stuff here. I tend to have to agree with the desk though. That Wukong, Yone, Narcomp looks very, very strong here. You've got Ziggs and Alistar coming over the top, but not to be outdone. The Hui being added in as a sprinkle provides you a lot of flexibility, right? You can play that more, bash heads together, fight each other 5v5, or you can play a little bit more different style composition where you play the keep away game. Will be interesting to see how they kind of fight around these objectives. That's where the big plays are going to happen, right? I don't think it's going to be in the side lane. It's going to be around Herald. It's going to be around 2nd, 3rd Dragon even. And that's where the big plays are going to be made here.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the flashy engages, the flashy outplays in these team fights are definitely available looking at the two drafts, right? You just look at them and you can see all of the wombo combo abilities that you can kind of throw on top. So much AoE available to both these two teams and so much lockdown as well. So it's
Yeah.
going to be really interesting to see, who is able to pull the trigger effectively, because it's not necessarily who pulls it first in this one. Definitely a lot of outplay in these team fights available. I mean, what I'm the most surprised about is, like, are ADC items this bad? Is the state of ADC that horrible? Like, we just don't want to pick a single champion that builds them? Crit is that bad right now?
If you talk to AD carry players, they'll whine and they'll say, "Yeah, it's the worst it's ever been. I hate my life." Blah 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 blah. You same old, right? Every AD carry does in the middle of the season. You don't see junglers complaining that their role gets changed every 3 months, but that's just me. But AD carry does feel pretty bad right now. I think because of how strong they were and how we were in a double ADC meta back like a couple patches ago and how dominant it was, the wide swing the other way has kind of brought it more in line. And I don't mind seeing mages in the bot lane, Hui, Ziggs. We've been seeing a lot of Yasuo, Syndra in North America. So there's a lot of cool Brand, Swain, these kind of champions. If you can pick them, you can pick them, and they definitely have their value in that bot side. And you can still supplement it with stuff like the Yone in the mid lane or Smolder in the mid lane. Just non-crit ADCs are doing fine, right? Kog'Maw, Varus.
Yeah.
The on hit. It's time of on hit now.
Vayne, yeah. I've seen Vayne
Vayne.
doing actually quite surprisingly well. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see it play out. This is my first time watching like a live performance where, we're on the current patch, myself at least. So it'll be exciting to see a couple more mages on my screen. It makes things a little bit more interesting, and I mean, makes these team fights really just enjoyable to watch. And I think a big thing is going to be these team fights, but for Nuclear Vikings, I feel like it's hard to look for them until it gets quite a bit later. I mean, Hui is a scaling champion. Akronos on this Smolder is going to want to scale up as well. And I mean, Gwen can do a lot of damage early, but realistically does want to get towards like, at least one item completed, sometimes 3. So I feel like Venom Crest have a lot of agency early in this draft so far.
Yeah, 3 items at major breakpoint, right? Depending on the build they go, but they'll go like Nashers into potentially Riftmaker, or they'll go a pen item, and then they'll go into the Death Cap. But that 3 item point for Gwen, that's where she kind of just takes over the game, and it becomes really hard to team fight into her, especially if you are this quadruple melee-esque composition. Because I'm gonna count Gnar as a melee champion, because that's where you get your most value out of, right? You're not going into team fights rocking up as mini Gnar, and when you're playing that quadruple melee comp into a champion like Gwen who can rip through you with her ultimate, that's where it becomes really tough for Venom Crest to kind of win some of these fights here. They do have that window in the early game, like you mentioned. I expect early dragon control from them because they are on the Ziggs and because they can reliably try to push this lane in against the Hui here. And also, I think Yone should have that control into Smolder. So I want to see Venom Crest force the issue, stack the early dragons, use that window of opportunity, right? Use the ability that you have the Wukong early on, who's really good at skirmishes, who's a really good fighter, and just force the issue. Because Venom Crest have to kind of play the waiting game a little bit.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Yone has finally hit level 3, so Paul George is going to be a little bit more relaxed in this lane, right? It did look like Akronos actually was getting the shove and kind of dominating the lane early, surprisingly. Shy has to be careful up here. Fruity Carrot might be able to find the Q. It does connect. The stun is there, and Shy is going to be in the grave. First blood goes the way of Nuclear Vikings.
Oh no, the dreaded 3.5-minute gank that no one expects. Oh my god! Somebody died to it again. I don't know. It's one of those issues where the Amumu coming in, it's a full clear into a top gank. You can't really do too much fighting into the bot side. Shy unfortunately falls for it and gets caught up, and that kill luckily goes over to the Amumu. I mean, that's like the silver lining of it, that it didn't go over to the Gwen. But Amumu still does damage, man. Like, he's going to build Leandries, he's going to rock up with tank items, and it's going to be really tough for Venom Crest to break the tank threshold, right? That's what they have to get ahead of. Does Amumu get tanky enough to absorb a lot of the Venom Crest damage, or does Venom Crest get ahead of that curve and they have the damage to just kind of out-team fight Nuclear Vikings here? Some more fighting in the bot side.
Bottom lane, Reedon trying to get away. Broady low on the opposite side. Tryhard Matthew, no mana available to him, and not Sandwich able to turn around, get him stunned up. Fruity Carrot moving in. That should just be a very dead Ziggs on my screen. No flash available. Broady not going to die to that Q, and that's going to be Ziggs in the grave. It's going to be Reedon running for the hills, and it's going to be Nuclear Vikings taking over in this early game.
And another kill goes over to the big-headed mummy. 2 bro. Now they're going to be able to, with that kill, take this dragon that's coming up, and there won't even be an objective trade to happen because they should be able to get it on spawn here, so he can get the dragon, maybe take a base, clear his bottom camps, and then start running over to the Grubs with this Gwen in hand. We know Shy doesn't have the flash available. Should be hitting 6 pretty soon here, so they should have control over these Grubs, but instead he's going to opt in for his bottom side clear. I would have gone for the dragon here. I feel like now you lose your opportunity. You've wasted your move. You want the tempo. That's fine. The camps. But I think there was a real good opportunity for them to take trap, especially with the % health damage that Amumu does. There's a big opportunity to take this Infernal Drake and kind of squash the early Venom Crest dragon stacking that they have.
So now we'll have to see whether Venom Crest are, going to be able to punish that, or whether it's just going to be Hazard moving up towards his camps as well. And I mean, Wukong, Temporal did touch on it a little bit. This champion does kind of struggle at the moment, and Amumu, a very resident sleeper, very strong jungler. Hazard's going to have quite an issue fighting against this Amumu early until he hits level 6, until he has that Cyclone available to him, right, and can make these ganks happen. So just wants to get that level 6 as soon as possible. The bottom lane, Not Sandwich, kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. Won't be able to just walk into the bush, though. A lot of movement speed out of nowhere. I don't even know how he managed to walk out of that one.
He'll be completely fine here. Bot lanes are just fading. And yeah, he opts in for the bot camp clear into the straight Grubs. Doesn't want to get the dragon. That's fine here. Grubs, bigger
so
priority.
Quick.
Yeah, I mean, AP junglers just in general, right, with the Faded Ashes. I think Brand's the only one that can do it quicker. But, I mean, having that win condition on the Gwen, as Reeton is in a pretty rocky spot right now. He's got to back out here. But Grubs, a better win condition for Nuclear Vikings, right? Gwen on a side lane with potentially 6 Grubs could just make Venom Crest play this game a lot different. They have to answer that. They can't leave her alone in a side lane here. But the response will be Hazard and the rest of Venom Crest going for this dragon. Although, Sandwich, you don't need to die for it, buddy.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, it might be a call just coming from Nuclear Vikings in general, right? You can see Fruity Carrot moving towards that bottom side as quick as humanly possible, but didn't move into the dragon, as, we did see Not Sandwich lose all of his health bar in the top side.
Oh, God.
I'm just going to get a solo bolo. Shy dying on my screen. I wasn't even focused on the top lane, but he drew my attention.
Bet he wish he had flash there. Shy, unfortunately, just getting run down. That's a byproduct of earlier laning phase in that earlier gank here. Shuck just taking full advantage of the Gwen-Gnar matchup. It's rough because usually these ranged into melee matches should favor the Gnar, but because of the distance closing available with this Gwen and the Ghost, like, it's really hard to get away from her, even if you have that hop available. Dragon does go over to Venom Crest during that whole exchange here. Not Sandwich loses the flash, but realistically, Nuclear Vikings have pretty solid control over the map. Like, they can just play this top side forever. But Fruity Carrot is going to use this advantage in the bot, in the mid here, to just put some pressure onto Hazard.
Yeah, and I was scared that he was just gonna kind of send it there onto Hazard's Raptors. I mean, he's level 6. Tried Matthew, gonna be able to dodge away from that binding though, and it means that Matthew will live for now. But I mean, it's only a matter of time until Mumu pops this ultimate and gets some damage done. Fruity Carrot gonna be so strong after one more back as well. I assume, really close to finishing that Leandries. I'd have to assume. I'm curious what the gold actually does look like.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that's really close, right? I mean, that'll be at least the hunting guys, right?
Yeah, easily the haunting guys here, but he's got like a solid 1,000 gold lead. And the more alarming thing is that Nuclear Vikings is on the more late game centric composition, and they're nearly 2,500 gold ahead here, right? Like, ideally, if you're the late game composition, you're okay going about 1 to 1.5k gold down and just relying on your scaling options. When you're this ahead, the window for Venom Crest is getting smaller, right? There was an opportunity for them to start stacking the dragons early, which they do have right now, but you have to make plays, right? With the Yone, with this Wukong, with this Gnar here. And because of the gold lead that Nuclear Vikings have garnered themselves, that window's closing, and eventually this Nuclear Vikings comp is just going to hit late game a lot sooner, right? It won't be a 26, 28 minute 3-item Gwen. It could be like a 24, a 23 minute.
Whoa, Brody.
3-item Gwen.
Getting very low. Okay, but we'll be able to get the kill here onto the Ziggs. And once again, Nuclear Vikings looking good. The Alistar will be able to try to kill back. Reeton gets that one for himself. Going to try and get himself out of dodge and able to find the stun. Not Sandwich. Not going to look for anything further. And Reeton gets away alive.
Yeah, 1-for-1 overall, but Brody ends up getting that kill. So the kill gold goes into the hands of a much better individual. Reeton gets it, but he's just going to get a little bit more tankier. Still, Nuclear Vikings coming up on the positive side here, and I've yet to see Hazard really do anything, right? He hasn't been really involved in the game. He's kind of just been PvEing, going for the camps, just seeing what he can do, providing a little bit of pressure. But they really need to get this Cyclone going. They really need to start pressuring a Chronos or Shook or somebody, right? Maybe shut down this bot lane, get your Ziggs a little farther ahead, because it could be hard for Nuclear Vikings to contend with a Ziggs that's kind of fed here. But he's got to make something happen quick, because I don't like the fact that Hazard has been doing nothing while Fruity Carrot has just been all over the map right now.
Looks like this is what the Venom Crest are looking to make happen. Nuclear Vikings are here, though. It's going to be a straight-up 3v3. Reeton is low. Paul George on the backline trying to get away. It's going to be Fruity Carrot caught in the middle of 3. Going to get taken down. A shutdown for the Wukong. Hazard looks for more. Akranos going to be forced to flash away. Not Sandwich with the Zenith Blade. Going to go for a re-engage. The knockup from Reeton. Cyclone has expired for Hazard, but it is going to be a very dead Leona on my screen, and 2 kills picked up by the side of Venom Crest.
Yeah, Shook is here, but he can't really do much. I'm surprised that Sandwich went back in after one of their members went down here, right? Fruity Carrot is dead here, and Hazard did a good job countering the gank into the mid lane here. That's where Wukong is really strong, being able to come in after all the CC's been used. As Shy might have to burn Flash.
Yeah, should be out. I mean, Hazard's here as well. I mean, this could be really bad for Shook, right? I mean, the Gwen going to be able to dash away. Paul George moving in, and we'll have to see what the Venom Crest team will be able to get done. Fruity Carrot moving in, trying to deter something, and yeah, Shook will be able to get out alive.
Yeah, and Venom Crest have to peel away from the Grubs to save their top laner here, so they wasted their move, or they used it to help out their guy there, but now 6 Grubs is going to go over to Fruity Carrot and the rest of Nuclear Viking. Yeah, I mean, this is just really, really damning. Gwen with 6 Grubs is going to be a viable win condition for Nuclear Vikings here. Overall, though, still, Nuclear Vikings, about a 2,000 gold lead, despite the kills going over into the favor of Venom Crest during that mid lane play. And Smolder still stacking up unabated right now. 0-0-0. That's exactly the kind of Smolder game you want. As Not Sandwich in the wrong place again?
Maybe. I mean, this Leona takes so much damage before she actually goes down, and just maybe able to walk that one out. Fruity Carrot was in the area as well, and with the Chronos TPing in, it didn't look like Venom Crest wanted to go for it too much, too hard, but the Dragon spawning soon. I assume that there's going to be a fight breaking out eventually.
Well, because Leona went down because of that play, and she's half health now, Venom Crest do have that window to just start this Dragon, or at least force Nuclear Vikings, and specifically their support, to come into this fight half health, which could be the difference maker here. Ultimate is available on everybody here. We'll see if Nuclear Vikings have the cojones to actually contest this. It's a Cloud Dragon. It's not that big of a deal. You can just kind of give it away and reset on the map and, you know, keep stacking. Play that late game composition. There's no desire, there's no need to contest this right now. Especially if something like a, you know, Ocean Soul gets rolled here for that 3rd, 4th Dragon, you could reliably give those up. But we'll see once this Cloud Dragon goes down what rift we end up getting. And oh man, I'm on point today. Crystal Ball is working. Ocean Soul, Nuclear Vikings is completely fine with that. Like, you can build you know, Heal Cut or Grievous Wounds in a lot of these guys, and it won't really hamper your build too much.
Yeah, and I mean, Item Spike's really close for Nuclear Vikings. Looks like Fruity Carrot trying to get closer. Matthew going to be able to flash out of that one, and that is going to be Ziggs with no flash moving into this potential Rift Herald fight, and Nuclear Vikings really close to these Item Spikes. I think that is going to be a completed item once Amumu gets back, and Smolder getting really, really close to that Triforce completed. This is a pretty strong position for Nuclear Vikings moving towards that 3rd Void objective. I mean, they've been playing for their win condition, and so far it looks like they're going to be able to continue down that path.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's that move ready as well. You mentioned, you know, Ziggs not having that flash available. The recall is going to come out from Leona. She's going to have her solar filler up as...
Whoa. Not Sandwich, again, kind of in a dodgy scenario, and this might just be Hui dying for the Leona's sins. Brody gets taken down, Not Sandwich going to be able to walk away, but poor Brody.
Yeah, I don't know about taking a recall in the river that we don't have control of, right? Not really the smartest of moves. Rift Herald is up and alive. They can wait for Brody. He has TP available in 10 seconds once he respawns. A lot of pressure coming down on this mid lane. They're trying to get this wave in so they can start this Herald. As you see the pings coming down, Venom Crest know that Nuclear Vikings want to start it. It's whether they can actually reliably do something about it. Ziggs does have TP available, and Brody's going to invest that TP into the bot side. If they know that, they could potentially send people to the Herald, but instead, they're going to give that top side objective over. They've got control over it. They might look to make a play onto Brody.
Brody, not
Flash
again.
is up.
Alistar's here. I mean, there's just no way out. I don't see a way out for Brody, but, you know, the fleet on Hazard has bought a little bit of time, still has the flash, might be able to
Flash
find
over?
a dynamic one, manage to get over the wall, but so much CC coming out from the side of Venom Crest, and the kill is going to get picked up by Hazard. Reeton just BMing, taking a few extra turret shots for fun. In the top side, the Rift Herald did get taken, though, and Leona Amumu looking for this dive here onto Shy. Nuclear Vikings just have to wait for this wave to get in. I mean, is this a viable dive on Dinar? No Mega.
If he can push this wave out, it should be okay, though. Shulk has this wave pushed in. Sandwich and Fruity Carrot can stop it. Let's see. I mean, Shy is just trying his damnedest right now. I mean, this is avert your eyes, guys. This is horrible.
The Q lands, the Dinar gets deleted. The turret is sure to follow. The first turret did crucially get picked up by Ziggs, though, in that bottom lane. So Venom Crest doing well to just make the first play, right? They knew that
There's a
Rift Herald was
two-turret
going
play
down.
here.
They knew that they could pressure that bottom side and end up getting first turret gold for it. But this could end up being a tier 2 picked up by Nuclear.
Yeah, 700 gold going into the pockets of these guys could be massive. 6 grubs, like we mentioned, and there we go. The second charge comes in. Tons of gold going into the pockets of Nuclear Vikings. So despite Venom Crest making a proactive play, or reactive to the Rift Herald, Nuclear Vikings answer twofold. They take the top tier 1, they take down Shy, and they get the tier 2 here.
Oh
and
my
they're going to get a
goodness, and they
fight!
look for this damage. Yeah, they find the kill onto Reeton. Hazard forced to dash away. The TP also forced out from Shy. Paul George able to find a Q3 over the wall. Shuck taking a lot of damage, but the Blast Gun able to buy a little bit of time. Akranos pushing off Paul George with the snapback, and Venom Crest not able to pick up anything off the back of that.
Yeah, I mean, Nuclear Vikings just extending the play a little bit. Once they've taken that top tier 2 down, that top side of your jungle for Venom Crest, you can't reliably walk in until you see these guys on the map again. So they just kind of fall for it. Now, Nuclear Vikings, 3,000 gold ahead on this quote-unquote late-game composition. Dragon coming up in a minute and 15. These guys are going to take their reset. And I said they didn't have to contest this third Dragon. They're in a really good position to just start stacking these themselves, right? They can take this fight. Venom Crest might be in the position to concede this, because if they lose one more fight, you know, with Baron coming up pretty soon, Vision going down, more gold going into the pockets of Nuclear Vikings, I don't know if Venom Crest are willing to kind of contest this third Dragon. It's not really necessarily a big win condition, because it is that Ocean Soul. Probably, you know, not the greatest, right? If it was Infernal or maybe Mountain or even Hextech, that's worth maybe giving your life away for. But I think Venom Crest might opt in to just give this away, as we do get that flash of gold. Chuck, 2,000 gold ahead of his counterpart right now.
Fate Seal not quite landing here onto Shuck, and Reeton trying to find that knockback, but won't be able to do so. Might find himself in a little bit of danger. Over the wall goes Hazard, able to get a lot of damage down onto Brody. Not quite taken out, though. The way out alive for now, but will get taken down underneath the turret. Hazard on the run, but gets taken down by Akranos, and it will be a 1-for-1. So far, looks like Nuclear Vikings not going to put any more pressure down just yet. And, I mean, you take one, but you lose one. I don't know. Who wins?
You lose your jungler here, crucially, with 9 seconds up on that Dragon. Venom Crest have to concede this now. You don't have a smite. You don't have anything available. Good play from Nuclear Vikings. Good look from the Venom Crest squad to try to get something done. Get a numbers advantage prior to this Dragon coming up, because you knew you weren't going to beat them in a straight-up 5v5, especially with their gold lead. But yeah, you can't really contest this. Hazard's going to be coming back from base. I would maybe try to like throw an errant Q, maybe see what we can do. But realistically, I don't know if Venom Crest can steal this.
Yeah, I mean, okay. The Ziggs ult comes out in an attempt, but Fruity Carrot did press the smite button. Very good jungler there. And Nuclear Vikings will pick up their first Dragon of the game, denying that Dragon snacking for Venom Crest, and Dragon stacking for Venom Crest, and no more snacking on them either, as it looks like Reeton might find himself in a little bit of danger. Mom gets called down. Akranos looking for the damage to follow up. The kill goes the way of Shua, and it looks like Nuclear Vikings will also pick up another tier 1 turret.
They just snacked on some prime rib there. Reeton going down in that exchange. I mean, hey, it's a cow, right? Tier 1 going down here as well. I mean, Nuclear Vikings have really good control over this map. Baron's coming up in a minute. They should take their resets, start placing down their control wards, seeing if they can get a pick. It's really hard to face check into champions like Gwen, Amumu, Leona, especially if you don't have that true tank. It's going to be Reeton, and Reeton will most likely going to have to expend that ultimate, as we do see a fight on 2 fronts in this mid lane.
That just kind of ended. Brody just walked away for now. Hazard is going to look for a little bit more.
Trying.
The Q doesn't quite land from Matthew, but Paul George looking for the Fate Sealed goes slightly wide. Brody able to buy a little bit of space, but the snapback will eventually take him out. Alistar
dead.
claims the kill for himself. Yone dies on the opposite side. The Leona finds a good solar flare onto the Wukong, but it hits the clone. A good cyclone comes out from Hazard, and a double knock up into the backline. Nuclear Vikings getting melted through. Fruity Carrot sacrifices himself for the Leona, and Not Sandwich, the only one in that fight to walk away alive.
Yeah, good look from Venomcrest to take down Brody super early. Paul George gives everything and his life for that kill, but really good from Venomcrest. Matthew specifically landing a lot of crucial spells to get a ton of damage off, especially when they're bunched up like that. That bouncing bomb does so much more damage. Venomcrest trying to even up the gold. They're still looking for fights. They're looking to scrap here. Especially when you have Wukong Yone, you should be looking to skirmish as much as possible, right? 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v3s, whatever you can do. In a straight up 5v5, Nuclear Viking still wins, but Venomcrest are finding those opportunities, finding those windows to fight, and have kept the gold lead around the 2,000 gold mark, right? It hasn't really shifted up or down either way.
Which, you know, is decent for Venomcrest, but it's something that we have highlighted this entire game. The fact that Venomcrest are the ones who don't really have scaling in their back pocket, right? The later this game goes is just a scarier position for this team. They've shown that they can win these team fights, right? We've seen a few times now that they're able to do so, that the kills are even, so that proves it, right? But, I mean, the game is on a timer. I mean, Matthew's the only real one that I would say scales. Yone gets, you know, decently strong. But they do need to make something happen towards the earlier stages. They don't want to let this game get past that 35-minute mark, I'd say, or else it does look a little bit doom and gloom.
I wonder if he even gets to 35 minutes. I'd love to get a stack check, onto Smolder here. He should be cresting upon that 225. Yeah, 21 minutes
man.
then. 5 more stacks, and this guy's going to start ripping through Venomcrest very, very soon.
And just
here.
completed second item.
Just completed the second item. Like, yeah, he's on par. He's on pace. Some guys can hit it around the 20 minutes, the 19 minutes, but 21 and a half, 22 minutes on a Smolder that is fully stacked. This Dragon, he's going to for sure have that up here, and they'll be really rough. Paul George is absolutely getting ripped through, by the way.
Nearly gets deleted, but not going to be another kill for this Gwen just yet. In the mid lane, it looks like it is going to be Nuclear Vikings pulling the trigger. Reeton on the run, has popped the ultimate, so is going to take a while to die, but Matthew running for the hills, leaving that cow on his lonesome. And Reeton just buying so much time, but will get taken down. Akranos picks that one up for himself and should have nearly secured that 225. This is going to be a very strong Smolder, finally moving to deal with Shy. Shy has been in the solo lane for so dang long, but that tier 1's going to fall, and Nuclear Vikings still looking strong.
I like this as well, having the Smolder deal with the Gnar in the top side, right? Like, they can just ping pong waves back and forth. Realistically, throwing Gwen up there, not really worth it. You just have her in your strong side, the side that you want to play towards, whether that is the bot side here because the Dragon's coming up. No one can match her. You just saw Yone try to match her, attempt to 1v1 her, and he got absolutely ripped to shreds. There's no MR on the side of Venomcrest, realistically. Like, Hazard's picked up a Hex Drinker, and that's about it. So having this Gwen play to the strong side, having your stacking Smolder match the weak top laner that is the Gnar here, I appreciate that. I really like this lane assignment from Nuclear Vikings. And now he's going to take his reset. Dragon comes up in 25 seconds. I'm sure they have full control over this. Venomcrest have to have full knowledge that this guy is fully stacked. Like, you have to go for a steal here, or you look for some crazy flank angle. Because like I said, in a straight up 5v5, Nuclear Vikings just win this outright.
And I mean, this might be one of those few fights remaining that Venomcrest have the option to take, right? They just hit a power spike on the Wukong. They just hit a power spike on the Yone. They just finished up that second item on the Ziggs as well, moving on towards that third. But this is one of those points in the game where they're genuinely probably the strongest they'll get for quite a while. Let's see whether they're able to make something happen in this fight. Reeton trying to move in, but the pit is controlled by Nuclear Vikings. Fruity Carrot taking that Dragon quite low, but it's just buying time. Not Sandwich able to find a stun here onto the Alistar, and both Reeton and Not Sandwich not taking any damage, but the ultimate already popped by the Alistar. And that's one less ability left available to the side of Venomcrest. They're trying to find a way in. They have the TP in from Gnar. TP in response coming out from the Smolder. 3,000 HP on the Dragon. Who's going to get the smite? It goes the way of the Wukong. And Nuclear Vikings look for the fight. It's going to be just absolute decimation for the side of Venomcrest. Matthew, the only one left remaining after the blink of an eye. And Akranos looking to find that kill as well. Matthew, no way out. Try as hard as he might. Might be able to get a kill here on the Not Sandwich, but Leona lands the Zenith Blade. They get the kill, and Nuclear Vikings pick up a clean ace off the back of that Dragon.
We talked about the 5v5 power of Nuclear Vikings, and Venom Crest get ripped through like a wet napkin, just absolutely shredded by both the Smolder and the Gwen, just ripping through with all their AoE. And yeah, they're going to go take this tier 1 for themselves here. I don't know if they'll be able to get it. Reeton should be able to clear the wave potentially, but they might just be able to get the tower and back off here. Not going to push for more. They're going to take the safe play. They're going to cash in all the gold they just got from that ace. They do lose the dragon, so Venom Crest have an opportunity to potentially snag themselves an Ocean Soul, but like I said, it's not really a good win condition for Venom Crest. You're not going to out-heal all that massive burst coming out from the Nuclear Vikings here. Gwen Ultimate's going to rip through you whether you have Ocean Soul or not. It doesn't really matter here. And we should see Nuclear Vikings start trending towards that top side, getting towards that Baron, placing down their control wards. Because of how strong of a position they're in. 7,500 gold. We have the luxury of being able to see that, but they can tab over. They can see that, hey, they've got individuals out of 3 items. If you look at Akranos, 11,000 gold right now, one of the strongest members in the game. They should just be able to take this Baron, start and stop it until Venom Crest actually commit to a team fight. That's the goal of this Baron here.
And I mean, that's kind of the sad reality of this draft for these two teams, right? Venom Crest kind of decided to fight fire with fire in this draft, right? They said, we have Gnar layering an ultimate. We have Hazard laying down the Cyclone. We have Paul George going over the top with the Fate Sealed. We have Alistar knocking them up as well. And I mean, everyone's getting involved in that team fight. And that makes it so easy for Nuclear Vikings to just have an Amumu ult, have a Gwen ult over the top, have an AoE coming up from Play and Smolder the whole time, and it makes such easy targets for this Nuclear Vikings team composition. And when they're already this ahead, when they do this much damage, it's just throwing flames into the fire.
Yeah, Venom Crest bought a matchstick. Nuclear Vikings have a rocket, unfortunately.
Yeah,
That's just kind of what happens here as the fight comes breaking out.
This is so sad. This isn't even a fight. This is just Triard Matthew dying on his lonesome in his own jungle, and that's a Baron going the way of Nuclear Vikings. They have 4 members committed. Gwen able to just do what she wants on the opposite side, might even be able to find a few kills. We'll have to see what she was capable of. Gonna bump into Hazard, and I mean, okay. The Gwen does take damage, and there's a lot of members of the side of Venom Crest to try and get the kill, but Shua just takes his head off. Wukong in the grave, Shy doing a little bit of damage, but Shua gets 2. He's forced into a 1v4, walks away with 2 kills, and his team gets a Baron in the process.
Oh man, 2-for-1 deal. What a way for Nuclear Vikings to win this game here. Shuck on the back of this Gwen. I mean, just everybody on Nuclear Vikings side playing really well. Akranos going kind of unpressured this whole time, right? Like, we were hoping to see some pressure put onto this Smolder, stop the stacking, really get him behind, but instead, Nuclear Vikings playing their comp to a T, and with Shook and Fruity Carrot getting active early in that top side, just propelled this team to start making plays across the map here. They take the mid lane tier 1 or tier 3. They're going to take the inhibitor as well. Will they back off, or will they continue to push? They've got 2 big cannon minions here. They've also got a wave coming in the mid lane, but instead they're going to take the smart route out. They're going to back off here. Rightfully so. Shook coming in. Could TP if he wanted to. There was a window to end this game, but I don't hate the safe play. I don't hate it at all. Take their whole topside jungle, pillage everything, come back and start and just, get double supers going once you take that bot lane tier 3.
Yeah, a very respectful way to play out this game, right? I mean, Nuclear Vikings, like you mentioned, kind of had an avenue into just closing that game out right there, right? They had the Amumu ult coming up in literally seconds time. They had Shua with that TP as well on the Gwen, but yeah, just opting to respect the enemy, not risk anything at the doors of victory, and just gonna back off, move into this dragon. They won the last dragon fight. They don't need the dragon. We've seen it. They just need to win the fight afterwards, and that could just mean the end of this game. So we'll have to see whether Venom Crest even contest it. Looks like they are gonna move towards that top side instead, and maybe just try and trade a turret. But realistically, I mean, you can't get much reprieve in this position.
Yeah, I mean, your Gnar is Wit's End, second item, 0-5-1. Like, this guy is just not a real champion right now. Like, it's unfortunate. You can't really team fight with them. We haven't really seen the Wombo combo that was promised from Venom Crest, right? You have the Cyclone, you have the Yone ultimate, you throw the super Mega Inferno Bomb over the top, and you get a ton of burst damage going. But Nuclear Vikings have just not allowed that. They forced the issue. They've got the Gwen plus Amumu ripping through your team. On top of that, Abyssal Mask is built, so there's more MR Shred on top of the already innate built-in Amumu MR Shred. There's just too much for Venom Crest to deal with, right? Doesn't matter how much magic resistance you have, because they're just going to rip right through it. And they should just filter down towards this bot side with what little they have of this Baron.
We'll have to see whether they're going to follow along with your script or whether they're going to write their own, as, you know, Shua is still in that top side trying to get that 1v1 done. And, I mean, getting the waves to match up would be nice. We'll have to see whether they even care about that, as Nuclear Vikings are in such a strong position. Venom Crest still can try and find an avenue in, right? If somebody missteps from Nuclear Vikings, if Brody or Kronos step a little bit too far forward, one of the damage dealers goes down, and it could prove fatal as the fight goes on, but it's such a miracle that you're asking for here. Brody and Kronos playing so far behind Fruity Carrot and not Sandwich. The turret under siege, no Baron available, Reeking into the backline. Fate Sealed only lands onto Amumu, but Fruity Carrot is so low, but he hasn't died! He's still alive in the face of death. He walks away. Tryhard Matthew gonna get taken down as well. Kronos gets a quadra kill, a typical Smolder moment, or I think it was a triple kill, but either way, a typical Smolder moment. The turrets will fall around the Nexus, the game will get claimed, and Nuclear Vikings will go 5-1 up here in Week 4.
What an absolute gangster Fruity Carrot is, right? Uses the ultimate, sticks into the thick of it, and gets the damage off for the rest of his team. I mean, that was the best possible play you could have gone for. Right? I respect it from Venom Crest, but we talked about that window of opportunity for them closing. And when a team like Nuclear Vikings, their comp designed for those more late game fights, gets an early 2,000, 2,500 gold lead, then it becomes really, really small. That window goes from like this big to like this big. And then you got to kind of like really, really, really try to find those opportunities. And unfortunately, Venom Crest couldn't find them. Good job from Nuclear Vikings. Really well-crafted composition, in my opinion. Really, really good. Mumu to stop a lot of the dashing, keep everybody in place for the rest of the team to get their damage off. And the way into the Ziggs bot lane is very nice to match that AP wave clear for AP wave clear. So you couldn't just get perma-bot prio with the Ziggs, right? You couldn't just start the dragons as early as you wanted. You couldn't find these fights. I really liked what Nuclear Vikings cooked up there. Venom Crest, I get it. You tried. It almost worked for a little bit. There were a couple fights here and there that you won, but unfortunately, they just came up a little bit short here.
Yeah, I mean, Venom Crest, I've seen bigger windows back into that game in Prison, I think. So, yeah, a bit difficult for them to be able to get back into that one. And it's just, you know, off of the draft, also off of just how strong Nuclear Vikings actually are, right? We've talked about this group before. Nuclear Vikings sitting pretty now at 5-1, right? At a very confident position. And somebody else who's sitting very confidently is going to be Ruddy, who we're going to be watching in the next series, guys. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Ruddy versus Vertex. It'll be me and Shibby, and the Analyst Desk will break down that game in a few minutes' time.
Welcome back to the Analyst Desk, everybody. Another victory for the Nuclear Vikings over... I just completely forgot the team.
Venom
Which
Crest,
team did I
mate.
just play? Oh,
The
yeah.
Venom Crest
Oh, yeah.
Serpent.
The Venom
XD4
Crest
Gamers, and
Serpents,
after
the
this game, potentially still D4 Gamers.
And XD4 Gamers, current 5th place gamers, and still struggling to put it together. So, Nuclear Vikings with the win. Now, let's first talk about the bot lane a little bit, because that was an interesting dynamic. We saw Matthew on the Ziggs, a rare style for him, and then the Hwei counter that you quite liked, Evie. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that bot lane dynamic? What did you like? What did you not like?
Yeah, so we look at the early levels, and Matthew's certainly struggling a little bit just to find his footing in that lane, which is tends to be what happens. Hwei does naturally have outpush against Ziggs early levels. Ziggs does pull ahead. It's very hard to stop them shoving waves out faster. It's very hard to stop them punishing you hard under tower, and Ziggs is more or less the king of punishing you under tower if he starts to get a tiny lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw the bot lane dynamic unfolding. Ultimately, Brody's team did secure the win and managed to do some solid damage later on, but the lane perhaps not as smooth as he would have liked. But another side of the map was having a much smoother early game and mid game and late game. Temporal, talk to us a little bit about that, Gwen, because I know Pivotless, you weren't necessarily as convinced maybe by the heavy AP that it added to Nuclear Vikings comp. Obviously, fine enough as that late pick, but a little questioning at the moment. However, ultimately, it seemed like any inherent problems with it melted away quite quickly, Temporal. So talk to us about the Gwen.
Yeah, the criticism of the damage profile is very valid.
True
damage comes through and looks good. However, in the 1 versus 1, Gwen is absolutely vicious right now. We'll see as soon as Shy pops back to Little here. She is straight on it, runs straight through the wave, and I think Gwen in her current state with ultimate is completely unmatched in the 1v1. It is all you can do is just be like, whoa, Gwen top.
Yeah.
Gone, like completely eviscerated. Not a chance in the world.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about AP itemization in kind of the bot lane context, but how sometimes it's harder to get a lot of AP in some ways. But Lichbane certainly gives you quite a lot on the grand scheme of things, and we saw Shush again make the best of what seemed like a pretty tough situation. Pivotless, if you want to talk to us about why Gwen is, I guess.
Why Gwen is. So in this situation, it starts to look a bit dire, but of course, Gwen is really good when you're just walking at her in a straight line as a group of champions. And it's well worth noting, of course, all of the damage that she deals with her passive, 50% of that she will get back as healing herself. So as champions are funneling into her in a choke, in a straight line, all behind each other, literally follow the leader, straight into Gwen's ultimate. And over the course of the ult, you are proccing your passive 9 times. It's a further 5 on the Q when you get into range. And of course, it's the passive's called 1,000 cuts. It is a death by 1,000 cuts. When you're getting hit by this 14 separate times, individually, it's about 2.5% max health damage. Okay, accidentally, that's half of your health in max health damage percentage over her combo. It's only made better, of course, by the fact that she's working in that item that I will remember the name of, that makes your damage below 40% health crits.
Shadow Flame.
Shadow
That's
Flame.
the one. It used to be Riot's pretend AP item into shields, and then they made it good. And Gwen really likes it now. It also amps her healing, of course, because more damage, more healing. So really, really good itemization here. Opting away from more of the Riftmaker type builds that we see a lot of the time. Acknowledging that with that amount of lead and with the relatively little kill threat that Venom Crest had onto her at that point, that she could just build full burst and tear the game open.
Yeah, it's death by 1,000 cuts, but every cut is like a Kill Bill style murder, and there's still 1,000 of them.
Death by a thousand
It's-
cuts, but one will do.
One would have done it, but
Mhm.
we still committed for the full 1,000 just to be sure. And even with the classic flash from the base of Gwen Scissors to the tip of Gwen Scissors and then still die moment at the end of that clip, which I always enjoy seeing. So a bit of a tough one, a massive game for Gwen Shush, putting up a lot of big games, I must say. Big clutch fights coming at the top side, and Nuke get another W. Now, they're still not putting together necessarily the cleanest games. There was a lot of mid-game action from Venomcrest that they can be happy with, that they were able to find some picks, and ultimately it's another W in the column for Nuclear Vikings, but this does feel like an ongoing story there, and we'll see how they match up against potentially Ruddy the next time around. But even, DMG and Vertex, as we say, we're talking about the upside that they're showing, so certainly a lot for them to be aware of. Now, speaking of Vertex, let's look at our last game of the day, folks. Ruddy versus Vertex, the current first place team, now still joint first place team Ruddy at 5-1, versus a 2-3 Vertex, or a 2-4 Vertex, I believe. Even with DMG.
Now,
2-4. Now, we can see the standings up here. So 2-4 match with DMG. Unlikely to catch Nuke and Ruddy, but they do need to try and put some more distance between them and Venomcrest. So let's talk about Ruddy first. I think it's a little simpler to address Ruddy because, again, it's a fairly consistent story here. The one thing we did see is we saw Erol die to a gank, maybe for the first time in history, versus Venomcrest, as we see the roster up there. A much more restrained game from Crisis, and the Akers Xin Zhao. So Temporal, as you've been, obviously with us for a long time, seen a lot of many iterations of Ruddy and this current roster throughout this split. Do you think have you seen any kind of movement and development and change for Ruddy? Because we talk about them often in a very consistent way, in very similar ways, but have you seen anything that has changed for them over the course of this split?
If anything, I feel like they're not dropping as many games in this format so far, and this is a horrendous curse. The only one they have dropped being to Vertex, with a little bit of draft disrespect. But generally, Ruddy would still come out of a regular season second or third. They would not be first, completely uncontested, completely without defeat. But this version is very close to achieving that. Only one more week to go, and their only nemesis, a struggling Blue Shell in Vertex, is here to try and upset that. And I'm not sure they'll be able to do it. I think it takes even more to push this Ruddy to a point where they're going to lose. They haven't had to swap out mid laners and deal with substitutions in bot lane and mid because of things going on. They've looked pretty consistent. They've looked pretty confident, and that should lean more into their growth. So high expectations for tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vertex, they look promising, again, as we kind of set up versus DMG on Monday with that hard engage comp, executing some well in some fights. It's a similar story that we see with a lot of teams right now, but they did sort of activate Blox's fight or flight response in that game. Sort of turned him into Tommy Shelby with the no fighting calls. But it was a tough watch for Bloxer, at least. And I think mainly he's just frustrated at them throwing the play potential and the advantages that they had, right? So Vertex still not able to serve that late game. Pivotless, when you are a team that is consistently drafting hard engage, that wants to play active, wants to be playmakers, how would you advise going about kind of fixing that late game? How do you make a more consistent win condition for yourself if you want to play kind of on the front foot on the aggressive side?
On the front foot on the aggressive side, it needs to be, your comms need to be diluted down to a point where if you're playing these kinds of comps, you effectively have 4 people are on a leash and 1 person has the go call. A lot of the time when we're watching comps like this, especially at this level of play, especially from teams like Vertex, who can be a little bit haphazard in their execution at times, it seems how they play that they're not entirely on the same page when they're moving into these plays, or someone's making the call to go before everyone's ready, or someone's already well and truly in great Hylissang fashion. You either follow or lose, but oftentimes you follow and lose, and there is no winning. So you need to restrict the ability from multiple members to make this call and have it all boil down to one person who you trust intrinsically to set up the play, and you follow that call. Now, I can't say for certain, obviously I'm not in their comms, I can't say whether this is the case or not, but it's just from an outsider's perspective, when you see the same mistakes crop up a couple of times, you start to think maybe their comms are a little bit muddled around these engages.
responsibility and
Yeah.
systems so hard to keep managing. Yeah, even if it's not going to be like one responsible person, like respecting the information can be so difficult to sort of enshrine and follow.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Vertex going into Ruddy, we know that Vertex like to make plays. We know they like to be active and kind of push the pace of the game for better or worse. Now into Ruddy, Temporal, how are we going to try and best use this composition, this stylistic choice for Vertex? If we're going to push the pace and try to make plays, where are we making plays on the map here to try and take down Ruddy?
I think we've seen like Errol die to his first gang, so I don't just say like, yeah, get him,
He's
get him,
opened him up,
boys,
yeah.
straight
Yeah.
down mid.
Yeah.
I think we also spoke earlier to sort of how individual laners and the reduced pace of the game overall and time to kill can lead to like large XP gains in side lanes and actually reaching level 18 in competitive games, which doesn't always happen. So I'm a bit stumped. I kind of want to see Crazy kill bot all the time, but it does lean into those issues. That's a target ban if I've
We're BMing a little
ever
bit, I
seen
fear.
one.
We're mind gaming.
This
a
is
little.
peak Vertex, right? So if we recall right back to that first game, Vertex's win against Ruddy, Heimerdinger, dusted, gone, with the wind, and now we're in a position where Vertex is, most unfortunately for the side of Mike, having to play what most would consider to be a real mid lane champion. So
Yeah, kind of
we'll see how
unfair,
that one
honestly.
goes.
Yeah, like I don't like if the pro scene is gonna give APA Ziggs this many times, why are we not allowing Mike to play as champs? Like this seems like an unfair scenario.
Bit puzzled by Vertex's bans. These are things that let Errol take over the game. But an Orianna ban yourself would set up for your own Syndra. So I feel like maybe this third one will reveal what we're going for. But it's very hard to unleash an extra mid lane pick with 3 mid bans.
Yeah, it could also just be the fun time package of another random mid laner band, with the expectation that somehow this will stop Errol from being able to carry the game on one of the many other champions in the game.
Yeah.
And it does leave wide open the many incredibly strong B1 power picks right now, Skarner being the premier option for Ruddy here.
I'm
People
so
already
disappointed.
playing-
Do you guys know what I'm disappointed with?
Why?
I'm like, it's not Xin Zhao Flex. Like, Ruddy, why are we leaving it on the table? Huh?
Yeah,
What's
why are
going
we giving
on?
the power away? Like this is But I mean people are already playing Cassio now as like a Yone counter and kind of a spot counter, and Errol is like Cassio is like the champion, I think, of when I think of Errol. Like there's no way you're going to ban this guy out off of mages, so I don't know if it's worth even bothering, honestly. Now the Kog'Maw direct answer, R1 for Vertex. Nectarios is like looking to carry the game. Obviously, there is potentially an angle for some sort of mid possibility here still. We can still just go AP hybrid build. But the priority here?
Yeah, I love Kog'Maw on current patch. I think as long as you have, I love it. I think it's fine. I think it's completely fine. Ari is
split my
not great
desk
on her
yesterday.
own. It's fine. It's fine. I think we both have decent justification. Mine is
Exactly.
going to be that Ari doesn't even have to do anything this game. She has to dance around in front of
She's great
Kog'Maw.
at that. That's Ari's favorite thing to do.
Yeah,
is
just
nothing.
don't assassinate. Don't fully control mage. Die slowly in front of Kog'Maw. Aurora somehow got all the way through to B2. I don't quite understand it, but we are slow rolling for Kog'Maw here. It doesn't matter.
Roddy,
the little toy soldiers in front of him.
While Roddy pick every like Z tier champion in the game, tell why is Ari making you claw your eyes out, Pivotless, to get the counter argument here?
It's not about the Ari. It's about locking a mid. It's about locking a mid laner here.
Completely blind.
I think it's extremely poor, and I guess Ruddy is not particularly punishing it as hard as they could be. But when you lock in Kog'Maw on the R1, a lot of the value in this pick right now is the fact that you can flex it into the mid lane. Of course, if he goes bot, you have the option of doing the AP on hit item variation that he's doing a lot at the moment, which just neutralizes some of his harder matchups. However, when you don't know if the Kog'Maw is guaranteed bot, it's really hard to pick the champions that Kog'Maw loses hard into. So when you break your own flex immediately in this manner, just to take Xin Zhao on R3 anyway, a champion that absolutely could have slotted into Ari's slot here at no expense, you set yourself up for, like I mentioned, Ruddy don't punish it as hard as they can. Jinx is good into Kog'Maw. Like, it's relatively handshake, but it comes down to player skill here. But if they'd wanted to, they could have very easily just slammed a mage in bot, and Kog'Maw's game is done, dead, on the spot, immediately, because you know where it's going. I think it's a very, very risky draft to
Um,
assume that Ruddy won't punish this harder.
And we've seen the Sinlux now. It's an option.
Yeah.
Mm.
Can play some of those mages. Blitzcrank ban, very bizarre from Vertex. They should be setting up for their own Leona here, in my mind, or something to counter the obvious Leona out of Ruddy Esports. Rel also still on the board and a fantastic champion here. As soon as Jinx gets through the RE dancing around, through the Xin Zhao's Crescent Guard, that reset will come, and Kog'Maw has to have done the job by then. I don't think an Enchanter cuts it anymore. They've limited their own safe R4 picks. And it's getting dicey for Vertex here.
Yeah, I think this is a masterclass in how not to draft from Vertex up to now, to be honest. Because this here needs to be double top lane bans into a blindable top laner. You can't blind support here as well. You can't set yourself up to double blind bot lane in a meta where the game revolves so heavily around bot side, and you're picking a champion as demanding of resources as Kog'Maw is. Your game revolves around Kog'Maw.
Have to be Leona after banning two Leona.
It has to be. You've just banned like every other viable. What is happening?
All right. Okay.
How about instead, right? Counterpoint, Renata. We need to get Pivotless and Luna on a desk, man. We need to get the two most tilted draft watchers in the Four Nations.
I'll pencil in the full live reaction analyst desk.
We might get banned from
Salt
Walkers
mine.
on
No,
that desk. To
10
be
out of
honest,
10.
we might get the Twitch account banned.
I love
Okay.
LeBlanc coming in here. It's flexible. It holds people at arm's length. You break anyone before the approach, and that Jinx reset will come faster. Kog'Maw's front line and his ability to move will be diminished. Does get a little bit more out of Renata. I think the ultimate and the W are nice. The handshake as a last resort to Aurora coming forwards and throwing an ult. I think it's enough. I think Thresh also leans into the creativity angle, not the biggest stat stick. But once again, who from Vertex is coming forwards? If you hold your cooldowns, Thresh should relax as much as possible this game and let Vertex deal damage to themselves.
From Thresh's position, you're very happy to lock it in here. Again, like blind Thresh is very punishable, but when you know you're playing against Renata, you don't really want to play the likes of the Leona, the Rel, these champions that are relatively easily disengaged when they're forced to go that far forward. So Thresh, a champion that plays in mid-range-ish, about 500 range champion, and of course, his hook plays from about half a screen away regardless. So Renata and Thresh don't interact with each other all too much, and it's a Camille to round this one out, which is, to be fair, good into Aurora top lane, but you are opting into a very, very skill-dependent matchup into a very good top lane.
Into Akkers.
Yeah.
I must say, I have liked quite a lot of what I've seen from Sharpie, especially in the early game. I think he's low-key been performed quite well at that stage. So if you're going to bet on someone, Akkers or no, Sharpie's a good player to bet on from Vertex. And like you say, the matchup is decent. So we started on a masterclass in how not to draft is where we began for Vertex. Where are we landing? Where is our finishing position here, Pivotless? I guess as a whole, now that we still have this Ahri, we have the Renata coming out and the Camille.
I don't like it. I've made that abundantly clear, but Kog'Maw in general needs to be able to walk forwards pretty much constantly. The champion lives and dies by his ability to just walk at the enemy team. Relatively speaking, having to stop as little as possible. He wants to be machine gunning. So he needs facilitators around that fact. You have Xin Zhao Ahri, which are really good at playing mid lane 2v2s and setting up the picks, but they're not that good at opening Kog'Maw up to just walk forward. You have a Camille that's very good at playing on side lane. She's relatively happy into an Aurora, but she's not very good at just enabling Kog'Maw to walk forward. Look at the side of Vertex and name for me, because at a fundamental level, I think every champion needs one. Every draft needs one dog champion. Your Sejuanis, your Maokais, your Malphites, your Ornns that don't need resources and can just dump their kit into a fight and be relevant no matter what. Look at the side of Vertex. They don't have one. They need to be resource heavy in all positions, and much to my chagrin, our observer has reminded me that as Kog'Maw is a void copy, technically speaking, they do have a dog champion. Just not the kind I'd like. Whereas
no, it's
I think
technically true.
the only
kind of true.
strengths I see in Vertex in that mash that comes forwards where Kog'Maw and Jinx start accelerating and start trying to drag their team kicking and screaming through a fight, which Jinx will have so much of an easier time at with that passive reset, is if Ruddy do overcommit and decide they want the Kog'Maw before they've gone through the step-by-step, before the job is done, then the Camille counterpunch will be so nasty. Does not have to kill the Jinx, but a Hextech Prison in front of Kog'Maw on the LeBlanc, on the Aurora will be enough. It involves a lot of steps together. It involves Ruddy trying to jump the gun, cheat the game, try and play too fast. But if Skarner finds a way into the neutral here, it is absolutely devastating for Vertex.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity for us to see a little bit more of that controlled play that we did see last time from Crysis, who has had a pretty rip-roaring start to the season. Not necessarily that it's all positive, but it is certainly exciting at every moment. But the Sejuani game was just very controlled. It was classic dog jungling, and now we have the Skarner to lock and potentially do the same job here. So we'll see. I want to see if we get that same style from Crysis, if we get to see that same restraint to temper the aggression. And then we have the Akka's Aurora, of course, into the Camille. Pretty fun matchup with Sharpie to consider there. And then obviously Sin and Jamsu taking the 2v2 aggressively, as we would expect them to do. So I like that we got Jamsu on a hook champion of some sort, and it is a step away. I was assuming we were just going to see the Rail coming out again, but I like that we've gone for something a little different out of Jamsu. That, as you said, Pivotless gives a little bit of creativity or maybe it was Tempora, maybe you said that, but gives a little bit of an extra dimension to this bot lane. So quickly, I guess not necessarily quickly, we've got Spectator today to run down. Last time we felt surprisingly confident in the massive underdog. Ultimately, the game mostly didn't pan out that way, though like I say, the mid game did get extended quite a lot in classic Nuclear Vikings fashion. Do we have the same level of trust? I feel like we don't. Just as a quick guess, because last time there was a lot of interesting draft dynamics, and we thought we had quite a cool, balanced, everyone's got an argument kind of draft. It feels like we're maybe not in that position in this game.
I feel
but
there are the few conditions we offered the Vertex, where it's like, should this get slightly degenerated and you've held on to a few ultimates, you do have one or two options in, but they're slim pickings.
Yeah, it comes down to, in order for Vertex to win this game, they have to, step one is making it to team fights on minimum even footing to begin with. Ruddy can't get an advantage in any lane because Vertex's comp is so high economy across the board. Then secondly, you need Ruddy to overcommit into space that does not belong to them, and also not kill Kog'Maw in doing so, and also not burn Vertex's major ultimates in doing so. And from that point onwards, yeah, Vertex has incredibly free fights when Ruddy make the mistakes first. However, if Vertex are forced to go forward themselves, or if Ruddy don't make those mistakes, if Ruddy just... It's basically paint by numbers team fighting. You just go front to back, you get Jinx her first reset, and you just play through front to back. As long as you're not overcommitting too far into a backline where Jinx can't get access, it's really hard to lose team fights as Ruddy here.
Yeah, now I won't ask the boring and pointless question of who do you think is going to win, because I think that's a bit of an exercise in futility, but I will ask the question, where do you think First Blood is going to occur in this game? You can give me a lane. If you're feeling real bold, you can give me a player who's going to pick it up. Temporal, do you have a sense as to where you think the action's going to break out first?
Top lane, I'm not sure which person. Sharpie, you got a lot of weight on your shoulders this game. I'd say no pressure, but it would be the inverse of the truth.
It would be false.
If Vertex are to do anything, then Camille has to be a huge threat. I think the Aurora will probably pick it up, but let's wait and see.
Pivotless?
Yeah, I can see a Skarner-related accident happening in the river, resulting in
accident.
The death of Wanna Zinzao would be my assumption here. Like, Skarner finds a pick in river, especially around these crabs, and mid just rotates, and well, there you go.
Full forwards, it's looking tough to walk into that river.
Okay, tough as it is, let's see if Vertex can buck the trend here. Let's see if they can hand Ruddy their second loss to Vertex of the group stage, mind you. Let's pass it back over to our casters, Drake and Shippy, to take it away for game number 4.
Thank you so much, Trajan. And here we are, ready and suited up for game 4. I'm excited to see this one get underway. I mean, Ruddy is a team that always delivers with content, right? Like every time I watch this team, I'm enjoying myself. Obviously, like 2 days ago, right, with the Xin Zhao top lane, not quite as spicy this game, but definitely some good drafts coming out on either side. Shibby, you excited for this one?
Ruddy has looked pretty clean actually this
Yeah.
past. Like I feel like yeah, they're definitely the content team. Don't get me wrong, but they
Yeah.
have been having some really good drafts, having some really good clean gameplay. Maybe they do get a little wacky at times, but I've really been liking what they've been cooking up in some of these drafts and how their players have been navigating some of these situations. I think it'll be a good challenge for them here in this match, particularly. I think there's a lot of different stuff, right? I mean, like we talked about the Kog'Maw. I mean, the desk went on about it, and I love that champion. It's a very good champion right now. On hit is the move right now. But also, you look on Vertex's side, they've got a pretty solid top side, right? Really easily able to punish this Aurora with like the Camille, Xin Zhao, Ahri. Kinda functionally works the same as like that Aurora Nocturne Ahri that we saw at Worlds. Has the lockdown in the top side, has really good dive potential, and all Faulty has to do is just really reset across the fight, right? Get that one kill onto that one target and really start going crazy here. Skarner LeBlanc, not the greatest 2v2 in my opinion, so I think Faulty and Harikari should have that in the bag here. But I'm really looking for Vertex to punish Akers in this top side once Camille hits level 6, because that's where things can get really, really dicey.
Yeah, and I mean, you really just hit the nail on the head. And I mean, as Temporo was mentioning earlier on as well, right? Like Sharpie does have so much on his shoulders with this Camille. And
Yeah.
I mean, it does feel like the Vertex draft just kind of operates that way, right? Like it feels like Faulty also has a lot on his shoulders in this draft. Like every single player, if they're not operating on all cylinders, if they're not really okay, hold on, Faulty has to be careful here. Jamsu has started hooks, so flash is
Oh.
forced from Faulty already. That's not the best start. But as I was saying, it feels like all
What are
members
we
of Vertex
doing?
they all need to play well, right? And it feels like Ruddy do have a little bit more of a front to back team comp, right? Like Crisis can just kind of not play the game, but be Skarner in front of a Jinx, and it can kind of work out. So a little bit harder to execute, I'd say, for Vertex.
My brother is flashless against a electrocute LeBlanc. This
Yeah.
is not gonna go the way that he hopes, unfortunately.
Yeah, about that 2v2 mid and jungle.
It changes now that your mid laner doesn't have flash. If I'm Skarner here, I'm licking my lips right now. I'm gonna try to find him, but luckily, Faulty does have that charm available, or should have that charm available by the time Skarner wants to ult here, or sorry, tunnel burrow in here. Is a nice hook from Jamsu. One has already gotten a flash, the other one has landed right onto the Kog'Maw here. Yeah, it's tough. We should watch this mid lane, because a solo kill may be coming out, or at least a 2v1 kill may be coming out very, very soon. Without having that flash, you cannot play as aggressively, and it becomes really rough for this Ahri to kind of navigate that lane.
Yeah, and I mean, something else you even highlighted, right? Got to watch Jamsu on Hook Champions as well. It's quite dangerous. To be playing against already getting a flash in that mid lane, and it looks like bot lane has quite a bit of pressure as well, and that might just be a result of Kog'Maw early, but you would kind of assume that two of the ranged champions would be having a little bit more of a shove, but Sin and Jamsu doing really well to have this early priority for Ruddy, and Skarner already in the enemy jungle. Harikari trying to get something on the top side. In exchange, Akers getting Sharpie very low. The flash forward, trying to find the damage. The Q will not land, and Akers might just end up going down. Sharpie has to be careful, though!
Give it to
First blood goes
Healy!
the way of Akers! He can maybe turn it. No, he cannot. It's going to be a 1-for-1 in that top side, but in a 2v1, that's not too bad. Nectarius on the bot side trying to get a kill, but the bailout is not enough. Sin not quite going to go down. Has the move to get away from the Kog'Maw. Passive! Oh my goodness, almost walks a little bit too far forward. Kakashi with the flash over the Skarner, and this game has already started off with a bang.
Good hooks from Jamsu in that bot side here, and top lane, like you said, a lot put on Sharpie's shoulder. Akers coming out with that, a 1-for-1 in a 1v2 situation. That is just criminal there. You should have just given it over to Healy on that Xin Zhao. Gets the kill regardless, but not looking too hot for Vertex right now. Still only the gold lead's about 700 separating these guys, and Faulty feeling the pressure right now. This can't really do much in this Blanc though. Akers,
I mean, should just be able to walk it out, right? Like Harikari
yeah.
only got one auto off, so won't be able to find that knock up, and I mean, Crisis moving in. This could even prove fatal for Vertex. Harry Carry trying to get away. Doesn't have a flash, doesn't have a dash, doesn't have a way out. Crisis gets the kill, and Ruddy looks stronger by the minute.
Beautiful, beautiful flash Q, right? Crisis gets that kill on.
No way, Jamsu finds one in the mid lane and might just be able to find the kill. Faulty, the chains finish him off, and E-Roll walks away 1-0, and I mean, just across the board, Ruddy are ahead.
I bet you wish you had flash there, Faulty. I bet you wish you had that. Unfortunately, gets punished. Jamsu the one punishing it, funnily enough. Getting that hook on to the mid laner here, and Ruddy are just slowly but surely blowing this game open right now. It was a 700 gold lead that separated these guys. It's a 1.5 thousand gold here. Now, Vertex do have that Kog'Maw and Camille to lean back onto.
Nah. I mean, Jamsu is just not in lane. Just the second jungler for the side of Ruddy. Able to assist in that kill. Crisis picks it up. Harry Carry doing a lot of damage here. Onto Skarner might be able to get the kill, but the shield comes out. And he gets away alive. Harry Carry not able to find the last auto attack, and Akker's gonna pick up the kill. Ruddy, I mean, you said slowly but surely. This is not slow.
Yeah, it's almost 3,000 gold.
At 5 minutes.
It's almost 3,000 gold lead at 5 minutes as we get a flash of the gold specifically, looking at it across the board. Everybody on the Ruddy side doing their part. Everybody picking up their weight here. And I mean, I said if you're like on a more late game centric composition, you're okay going about 1 to 1.5k down. 3,000 gold roughly is pretty bad here. Ruddy can force the issue on these early dragons. Is okay. Should be fine here as Jamsu hits another hook.
Yeah, another hook and a lantern and an assist, I'd have to assume. E-Roll should just be able to finish that one off. Gets another kill, and Kakashi finally adds his own death to his team's mounting amount of them. Now 7 deaths for the side of Vertex, only in exchange for 1 kill towards their side. And Jamsu, I mean, so much KP on this guy. He already has 5 KP, and we're at 6 minutes into the game.
Has he missed a hook? Has he missed one that we've seen on camera?
Oh, yeah, he did. He missed Faulty, technically.
Oh, technically he missed Faulty. That is true. But this guy's been absolutely heat-seeking on it. He's gonna go for another one.
Nah, bro, that was Bluetooth connection as well. I swear the minion was in the way, but Kakashi gets hit by that one, and it looks like Skarner's gonna start up the grubs. So overall, Ruddy just really running the pace of this game, left and right. Crisis gonna be okay with walking away with only 2 of those grubs, right? And Harry Carry might not even stick around for it. No, he will. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, a consolation prize for Vertex, but the game has fallen so far out of their hands already.
Oh, they're going to go for this fight. Oh. Yeah, LeBlanc is so strong here.
I mean, Harry Carry is just caught in the middle of 3 members. It's just who you want to donate the kill to is Ruddy. Looks like E-Roll will be the one to pick it up. A 3-0 LeBlanc 7 minutes into this game. And Vertex are looking to keep up that pace of at least a death a minute.
Yeah, and we can honestly promote Jamsu to Blitzcrank, right? He's on the Thresh. If he's playing Blitzcrank, this game goes even more haywire as another hook lands.
And almost another kill goes over. Nectarios, whew, almost knocked into bailout range, but will not do so. But that means he's forced to back away from the wave, has no flash, no barrier. Dragon going to go the way of Ruddy. Jinx going to free push in that wave in the bottom side. Faulty pressured as well. I mean, at this point, how do you get back in as Vertex?
Like I said, there are opportunities to play this late game here, but realistically, Vertex they've got to shorten up the mistakes, right? They can't. Like, I get it. Jamsu's really good on the Thresh. He's gonna hit you eventually, but have the right people in front of it to tank it, right? Have the Renata, have the Xin Zhao here, because right now Vertex, they want to lean on this late game between Camille and Kog'Maw, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to get to it. Look at Ruddy just pushing the envelope of this early game lead, right? Invading the jungle, putting pressure, allowing some safety for your laners, and I mean, this Skarner is just tanking 3 members.
Okay, misses the ult on all of them though, and Crisis is getting very low. Might just go down. It's going to be a kill picked up by the Xin Zhao, but Nectarios running away. Going to get pushed into bailout range, will go down. Kakashi also going to fall. Harry Carry, the last member alive in this fight for the side of Vertex. Will be able to walk away. Luckily, going to be able to flash away from that Super Mega Death Rocket, but that is just so much pressure afforded to Ruddy. So many more kills going over. 5,000 gold lead at nearly 9 minutes. This is just absolute insanity.
I mean, this is good, clean play from Ruddy as well. Is Akkers is just gonna go for the solo kill. Yeah, that's just what he does. He's so far ahead of Sharpie right now. And yeah, I mean, this is what we talked about with Ruddy. Like, obviously it can devolve. They are content based sometimes, but as of right now, their early game has been so clean, right? Pushing the right advantages, understanding where Vertex is and putting pressure onto them with Crisis, with Sin, with Jamsu specifically. I've really liked how they've been playing out this early game so far, and it's garnered them a near 5,500 gold lead right now. I mean, it's just ballooning to the point of Vertex don't have a late game to lean on. They've got to make something happen with this Camille, with this Ahri, with this Xin Zhao, somewhere across the map. There are shutdowns on both E-Roll and Akers here. Pick a guy, throw everything at him, and hope the kill goal goes onto somebody like Sharpie here.
Yeah, I mean, every game is winnable, but some are, well, as my solo queue teammates would say, not worth playing out. We'll have to see how Vertex are feeling. It is so difficult, right? Like, it is such an uphill battle. Every fight is lost if it's even at this point, right? Because you are just so far down in the gold department. Everybody on the enemy team is smacking you with their wallet. I think Jamsu maybe wins in a 1v1 against Nectarius right now. So it is difficult. But like you said, not impossible. You can look for these miracle plays. Sharpie might have a miracle outplay coming out underneath this bottom or top lane turret, but I don't think so. Gets pinned against the wall, and we'll have to see what he can get done. But Jamsu with the hook, with the flay, and Akers with the kill. It's just going to be, I mean, it's taking candy from a kindergartner.
He didn't take the candy. He took the candy, shoved him to the ground, and started stomping on his face. That's what Ruddy's doing right now to Team Vertex. Sorry for the graphic description, but that's what's happening. Team Vertex is absolutely getting outplayed across the map right now.
Okay, maybe Harry Carey can get something done. Sin pushed out of his turret range, and it might just be enough damage coming out from the Xin Zhao, but the ult comes out, and Sin might just win in the 1v1, able to get that kill picked up with the assist from Akers. And Akers actually going to be able to be the one who walks away with that kill. A TP forced out from Akers, a kill picked up onto Sin, but I mean, at what price, right? You're losing Grubs, you're losing that top tier 1. You got like, what, a plate and a kill onto Jinx? It's really not that bad here for Ruddy.
No, not at all. And they're going to be able to get the full 6 Grubs here with both LeBlanc and Aurora on split push duty, on side lane duty. And you've got a Jinx as well who can push down turrets very quickly. The siege and Nectarios is going to almost go down there. A lot of bursts coming out from Akers, and he's not even at a full item, right? He's still got components. A lot of the team, a lot of Ruddy still have components.
Oh, there's no way! Sin, an absolute monster, American sniper in the flesh.
That's the 5 kill
streak. You can't even, you don't even have safety in your Nexus as Vertex right now. It is so difficult to play this one out. Crisis might go down, though. It's going to be a kill picked up for Vertex. Faulty moving forward, trying to get something else done. Going to take a lot of damage to bail out there, but not enough damage to claim the kill onto E-Roll. It will be enough in the end, though. Xin Zhao will be able to pick it up, and Harry Carey looking for Jamsu as well. It might have been a little bit of an overstep from Ruddy. They got a little bit confident seeing their Jinx kill the enemy ADC in base, but they do get punished for it.
Yeah, couple 100 gold going over to the Xin Zhao here. I don't know if a 5-4 Xin Zhao. This looks like my solo queue games, man. I'm jungling. I've got a bunch of kills. The rest of the map is just absolutely in shambles here. And Vertex do still have that late game, but I don't know if Ruddy's going to give them that comfort, right? They are just been pushing the envelope. This is the kind of team that when Baron spawns at 20 minutes, they are taking it at 20 minutes, right? Like, they're not going to wait around for Vertex to scale up. They're not going to ping pong these lanes back and forth. And now Ruddy has all completed every single first item, right? On the side of Ruddy here. And so now they're so strong.
Yeah, I mean, E-Roll's just killing Harry Carey on his own wolves. Crisis is going to be able to pin the Xin Zhao against the wall. Not quite, actually, but has plenty of damage to follow up. That's going to be a very dead Xin Zhao. E-Roll trying to get some damage down onto Nectarius. Crisis is going to be there to assist him. On the opposite side, Jamsu does get the Renata into bailout range, and that will be a kill picked up by Sin. Kog'Maw dies on the opposite side, and, I mean, Vertex continue to drop like flies.
18-6. 9,000 gold lead at 13.5 minutes here. Ruddy just doing a fantastic job navigating this early game, and the laning phase is almost over, right? We're still,
the laning phase is almost over.
It's almost over. So maybe there's, I mean, who am I kidding? Vertex have to find some miracle team fights here for them to kind of get back into this game. And a lot of that gold from those team fights have to go onto the Kog'Maw here if they want a chance at coming back into this game. Realistically, we're in the Baron waiting room, and it's 6 minutes till that.
Nah. That, you
That was
know,
a play.
yeah, if he gets Sin, it's nice, right? But like, obviously they're tilted, right? Like we're at 14 minutes in, and the gold, like we mentioned, is insurmountable. Obviously we know as spectators that Sin has barrier and flash available. You'd hope that Vertex have calmed that, so it did look like a little bit of a tilt play coming out from Faulty. But obviously, if it worked, he gets 300 gold. I mean, there's no shutdown available. I don't know how to cope.
I'm very much in the camp of trying to do stuff if you're far behind in gold.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Like, you have to. You've got to go for something. And if it's a bad play, it's a bad play. But you'd rather go for that than to, like, slowly riddle out and get choked out of the game here. Trying to get some gold back, trying to exploit individuals on, like, by themselves in these solo laners, right? With the champion like Ahri, you can definitely do that. I think, like, Sharpie, Harry Carey, and Faulty just kind of have to run around and be goons. Honestly, like, that's what they have to do. They've got to, like, 3v1 Aurora up top here, and that's the play, right? Catch these guys on side, make a play happen, overcommit resources, because that's all the gold you're going to get.
I've seen Akers win these. That's the issue. I mean, we'll have to see whether the Goon Squad wins out. The TP comes out. They're committing 4 members to make sure they kill Akers here, but in comes Crisis. It turns into a 2v4. We'll have to see who wins. Akers with the fancy feet, not quite able to get to the Lantern, though. And he will go down. 4 members committed from Vertex. They get the shutdown picked up. Finally, they did have to commit so much, though.
What you got to do. That's what you have to do, and unfortunately, they are going to get that Rift Herald going down.
Okay, Crisis able to pin Harry Carey against the wall after the Rift Herald charge, and that should just be a very dead Xin Zhao. Not quite picked up, but there you go. Into the bailout range. Jamsu going to be able to finish him off with the Skarner.
What a scoop. What a scoop from Crisis there, by the way. Punishing the Rift Herald usage.
Whoa,
Sin.
I mean, just going to go down to Sharp. I mean, you saw how low Nectarius was. They must have duked it out, and Sharpie moved in. And I mean,
Yeah.
Vertex kind of capitalizing on the chaos, right? I mean, Ruddy, they've lost 2,000 of their gold lead now. It was 10,000. It's gone, closer to 9,000 now. And it's starting to shrink ever so slightly. And Vertex starting to actually be able to punish the fact that Ruddy are making too many plays on the map and can't possibly be in control of all of them.
Yep. Shrinking slowly but surely like me in cold water. But Ruddy is just going to keep this gold lead, right? 9,000, 9,500. I mean, there's nothing really Vertex can do about it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, Sharpie still seems like he has some fight in him, trying to get something done here onto Akers, trying to defend that tier 2 turret, but it is just going to go down eventually. Akers going to be able to get the kill picked up as well. Crisis just here. And it will be another tier 2 turret falling. Sorry, the first tier 2 turret falling actually for Ruddy as they move towards this tier 3 and pressure all of the other lanes. I mean, it does just seem like a formality at this point.
Yeah, I mean, these outer tier 2s are going to go down eventually, right? The tier 3s, with the gold lead that they have, they don't actually need the Baron necessarily. It's a nice kind of addition to it, but I don't know if you want to take the inhibitor. If you're in the school of thought of not giving inhibitor gold, not giving super minion gold over to Vertex before the 20-minute mark, before the Baron, you can do that. You can just keep these inhibs open and just play the map indefinitely until Baron's up. Akers is just
Harry Carey just takes so much damage. Able to get the kill, actually. Pops the ultimate and might be able to find something further here onto Crisis. Kakashi still has the bailout, you'd hope.
Okay.
Crisis is going to try and get over the wall. Going to be able to get to safety. Not quite. The last auto attack from Kakashi able to secure that kill. It will be the ultimate coming out from Renata as well to buy a little bit of space here for Harry Carey. Sin going to try and run him down. The Super Mega Death Rocket does pick up the kill. And I mean, Vertex, once again, they don't look like they've given up. That's what's really important here. They are still getting kills on the map. But Ruddy answering with quite a strong fist, I'd have to say.
Yeah, a big counterpunch from Ruddy, right? The plays that Vertex are making are now being punished because of how long it takes to kill some of these guys. Akers really kind of innately beefy with the grass, with the Leandries. Crisis as well, just full tank pretty much. Sterak's, Heartsteel, like this guy's a chunky monster on the Rift here, and you can't really do much about him. Vertex have to make plays onto the more squishier members. Sin, E-roll specifically, but it's a lot easier to make it onto the Jinx than it is to the LeBlanc because of the mobility of this mid laner here. You can look to punish Jamsu as well. He's not the tankiest of members, right? He's still a support. He's still only on that Locket of Iron Solari, but you want to try to get the shutdown gold, right? A lot of it went over to Faulty when that kill happened onto Akers in the top side where they committed 4. But Ruddy are just going to keep fighting for your resources, right? Everything is objective to them.
I mean, Harry Carey's just dead, right? Like, there's just no way out of this one. He's trying to claw his way to safety, and Kakashi has moved in, can't quite help out much further. The bailout does come out, and a little bit more damage down onto E-Roll, but it's not going to be enough to deter Ruddy from controlling this jungle, from controlling the space around this Infernal Dragon. And I mean, of course, it's going to be an Infernal Dragon soul, right? Once Ruddy has a lead like this, like Vertex just, just they saw
Could've
maybe
rolled
a
a
single
soul.
way out, but the light is shattering in front of their eyes. As Ruddy don't even want the dragon, just going to push in for the turret for these
What a
fights.
hook.
They know that Xin Zhao's dead. They know that there's no threat from Vertex. Kakashi just going to get taken out in his own base. E-Roll pushing forward as well, and it's just how annoying this team comp is to deal with already, and they're so far ahead. It's so hard for Vertex to survive the siege.
Yeah, Jamsu keeps hitting hooks like that as well. They won't have a base left to defend very, very soon, as mid lane inhibitor is going to go down here at the 20-minute mark. Another hook does go wide here. 4v5 though, and top lane inhibitor should be on the siege right now, but Sin is just stacking with lethal tempo and rockets. I mean, this champion absolutely busted right now.
I mean, dude, Nectarios has only Ginsos. Like, this Jinx is 2.5 items. Nectarios barely surviving that exchange. The Renata ult over the top, not quite able to connect onto many. Harry Carey surviving for quite a long time, but Acker's so much damage into the back line, and it looks like it will be a fate of Vertex to lose this game. Ruddy trying to end it out now. E-Roll finding a little bit of damage forward, but will end up going down. And Sharpie moving to the backline, trying to get something secured, trying to save the Nexus, but it's exposed, and it's only defended by 2 members left alive. Nectarios gets taken down. Faulty can't quite find Sin. The Kog'Maw passive not even going to be able to finish him off. A double kill for Sin, and Ruddy walk home with the win. They walk home 6-1 here in week 4.
He's playing a different game, right? That's not Summoner's Rift. That was Earth. They were piling up kills left and right. 29-11. They had more kills than there were minutes in the game, and they absolutely dominated that early game. Really good play. It didn't turn into a fiesta, nothing like that. Ruddy just from start to finish, early game dominance, parlaying that into jungle control, parlaying that into objective control, kills on the right members. I mean, it was just a masterclass from them. I don't think they gave up any objective other than the Herald that they were able to sneak away on the side of Team Vertex. And just Ruddy roster, insane. That loss that they were handed, a fluke by any means, if you're really talking about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, Shibby, it feels like, maybe Ruddy did take that last loss to Vertex a little bit personal. An absolute clinical performance coming out from them, and it really just stomping Vertex into the ground in quite a supreme display of talent as well as just strength here in their group, right? They're now going to be sitting, I think, at the top of their group, 1 win ahead of Nuclear Vikings. Maybe even, I can't quite remember. But either way, a very strong performance from Ruddy so far this season, but as well in that game. We'll have to send it back to the analyst desk after a short break, guys, and they'll analyze that and close us out for the night. But that's going to be it from me, Drake, and from Shibby. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the UKEL, and we'll be right back after a really short break.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Another Ruddy victory in the books. Vertex not able to repeat the success of last time. The Heimerdinger ban went a little bit crazy in that draft phase, and Ruddy managed to get a slew of meta-breaking picks and proceeded to break the backs of Vertex without too much trouble. Now, we were already somewhat confused by the Vertex draft from the early stages, but Temporal, you predicted that we'd see some action in top lane, and see it we did. However, we almost got the reverse. We almost got Sharpie and Harry Carey able to find that win, but ultimately it was Aurora. So I guess talk to us a little bit about the top lane and then how the jungle, like I guess Harry Carey's early adventures in that game, because I think that was and did end up feeling quite important to the rest of that early stage.
Yeah, so it was a little chaotic in top as expected. I think Camille really tries to push the matchup. Aurora has a lot of opportunities to be like, "Whoa, hey there, buddy. That shield ain't so big yet. Just calm down. Let's deal some damage." And Harry Carey nearly pushed that first blood back round. It is a great lane to visit. It is the Chaos Zinzao thrives in. Aka's unfortunately just built a little different. Gets the wave in, plays with the wave, manages to eventually go down to Harry Carey, but not without taking Sharpie out first. And talking of Harry Carey, not a great time stuck in the river. We don't have any replays, unfortunately, but I'm sure it's etched on nearly all of your eyeballs. That Zinzao, unfortunately, going from mild numbers advantage to swift 3v1 victim around the first grubs in absolutely seconds.
Yeah, a tough one to watch for sure. And Harry Carey did manage to pull kills back here and there throughout the rest of the game, certainly trying to salvage some efforts in the mid game, but ultimately it was a little bit of a futile effort. Now, and a large part of that, I think, is due to a little bit of a little bit of a chasm in the bottom lane, which in Ruddy games is not necessarily an infrequent occurrence. Pivotless, would you like to tell us a little bit about that bot lane matchup? You did promise that you would paint a picture with 1,000 words, given that we have no replay here. So take it away. Let's let the artist go to work.
So to paint a picture of words, I want you to visualize the bottom lane of a rift, banana shape in nature. And let's say that you are in this position, you're the Jinx, right? Just close your eyes, let it take you away. You're Jinx, you're side by side, you got a Thresh. You know that you can position as aggressively as you like, because your Thresh is always going to give you the opportunity to remove yourself from a situation effortlessly. On the opposite side, it's a Kog'Maw. Alongside the Kog'Maw, it's a Renata. These champions, they don't have many tools to punish you on Jinx, so free-flowing, water of the river, passing you by as you step on past it, because you know you can put in as many auto attacks as you want beyond the river with no fear whatsoever of repercussion. Not only no fear of repercussion, but also the opportunity to get them into kill range time and time and time again. And when your top laner is winning as hard as Aka's is in this game, you know for fact that your scaling will be uninhibited, your tower taking unlimited, and your capacity to win the game, frankly, 100% from the get-go. There were some minor sins committed by Sin in this matchup, suffice to say. At certain points, the Archie appeared to have gone on a vacation from the keyboard.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it's one of those matchups where if one side gets ahead, the other really, really struggles to get back into it. And it was simply the case. Kog'Maw falls behind a little bit in the early game, and then suddenly it's 20 CS, and it's 40, and it's Kog'Maw taking a base and thinking, oh, well, at least I got out alive. Hold on. As Jinx Rocket comes sailing in from cross-match.
Oh, yeah.
And from that point onwards, it's even down to no attempt being made. So at least, you know, if you die as Kog'Maw in a silly position, you at least walk the passive around a bit, have a bit of fun with it. As soon as that passive stands still, that is visible tilt. So it's hard, tough one. All around,
as much as the Jinx Rockets did have some of our viewers tearing their hair out, the redemption at least was there. The fountain kill, it was sick. It was sick as hell.
There
I'll
was
be honest.
nearly the peak comedy moment of Sin being one crit away from killing his own teammate off of a Renata ulti, which is very, very funny.
Yeah, going for the 9-kill combo right there. Sadly, was not able to lock it in. But yeah, it was another very stompy game from Sin. Jamsu on the Thresh, very clean. Excellent impact on the mid lane, certainly from the get-go. So even though it's not the Nautilus, even though it's not the Blitzcrank, the Thresh was looking clean. So we know that Jamsu does still have the options in that tank. It's another player that is very hard to ban out on this roster, as the Ruddy camp still clearly keeps what makes them Ruddy. We're still, tossing the kill every now and again. We're maybe disrespecting a little bit, but the draft has tightened up. The lanes are stronger than ever. And we are, I think, still gathering momentum here for Ruddy. So Ruddy versus Nuclear Vikings is going to be very exciting. Of course, when we go to the cross-group play, that is going to be very interesting to see. There's a potential Verdant matchup, and the Ruddy Verdant is somewhat of, El Clasico for the UK at this point. And both are packing away the wins in quick succession. So looking forward to that one. Any last words or thoughts, Temporal, on the day before we wrap
1 week
out?
to go. I think the best teams in our league look pretty hot on the live patch. There has not been a lot of competitive league here. There are a few tournaments going on right now, but otherwise, I think we're gonna have a pretty exciting playoffs. Not long to go. I'm getting that itch. I'm getting the
Yeah.
Worlds is on. I want to see some best of series. I want to see some
Yeah.
blood. I want to see some tears.
Absolutely. We've already seen probably a lot of bodily fluids from the last finals we saw at the end of summer. It was a messy one, that's to be sure. We'll see what we can get out of this final. Pivotless, on that horrendous image, do you have anything to add?
I'm just trying to clear that one.
I know,
directly
I
from
really
mind
kind of
before I continue,
tripped
but
you with
it's
that one.
positively waterfall-like in nature. The one thing that really intrigues me with this Vertex loss is we return to Group A being relatively close at the bottom of the pack. There's still just one win in it, and whilst we didn't see what we wanted to from Venom Crest earlier today, that's not to say that they don't still have a little bit of time. There's a couple of games left. Across the board in that group, there's a couple of games left. You still have the chance to at least punch your ticket into fourth, make it to those cross-group games. So I'm really excited to see how the bottom of that table develops, because it feels like the top-end teams are already pretty locked in. They're already ready for playoffs, so it's about who's there to join them.
Yeah, they're certainly looking very, very strong. Can't wait to see them play against each other. Of course, we'll be back, I believe, at the usual time next week for the final week of the regular season before we move into the playoffs. So looking forward to seeing you all again there on Monday and Thursday. For now, I have been Trajan, John Temporal, and Pivotless on the desk. Thank you very much, Drake and Shibby, for casting with us over those last couple of games. And thank you, Dry Salad and Bloxer, for taking the first couple as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see you on Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night.